Yo, what's up, dudes? Be ready in a second. Hold on. Vince, since you're here first, we can do some fat electrician first. Ugh. Yo, Claymore, what's good? How are you? Getting ready to start. Actually, no, Vince, we're not going to lead off with some fat electrician. We're going to lead off with what's on the title. I forget that I was going to do that first. And then we'll get to the requests and stuff, so. I'm going to start doing this from now on. This will just be a part of the stream where we just go over military news. Because I like reading the military news, I figured I'd make videos about it. So we've been going pretty hard on that the past couple of days. I've made some uploads, and we're just gonna keep doing it. Something I wanted to do like a long time ago, but I just didn't have the time. We were doing so much music and stuff, and now that the music requests have kind of like died down, kind of like put other stuff onto the channel or just like do other stuff, you know. So, but we still are gonna do music on YouTube or on Twitch, I mean. But by tomorrow. Racky Roo, what up, dog? Okay. All right. Y'all want? Y'all want this or this? I'm just gonna be reading over stuff. So we're gonna find out what the title is all about. That's for sure. Because what? All right. Do y'all want big screen? Do y'all want to actually see this? Or do y'all want it how it is right now? With the little screen. It's up to y'all for this. I don't know how I want to do it. Because I'll be uploading these, so whatever it is how it's gonna look when it's uploaded, so. DoD commits $9.8 million to study psychedelics for active duty troops. All right. Before we even dive into it, I just want to give a quick guess as to psychedelics for active duty troops. PTSD. That's all I can think of. I can't think of any pro and or con. I can't think of any pro that this would have outside of strictly PTSD. Is that the logic? I feel like psychedelics would make that worse because, you know, PTSD, you get flashbacks. Sometimes you see shit that's not there, right? That doesn't really seem like a good combination of an already hallucinating soldier to hallucinate more. Officials at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center confirmed they will receive one or two $4.9 million grants from the Department of Defense to fund a study of MDMA, the active ingredient in the street drug known as ecstasy, according to emails shared with the Military Times. The psychedelic drug will be given to active duty Army personnel with mild to moderate post-traumatic stress disorder. I honestly can't tell you if that's a good thing or bad. That, to me, that seems like a bad thing. and PTSD is not the same across the board for every person. PTSD differs from person to person. PTSD is different, not the same for everyone, right? So I don't know, man. But hold on, okay. Well, this probably offsets it. The psychedelic drug will be given to active duty Army personnel with mild to moderate. I guess if it's mild to moderate, you can get away with MDMA, right? But I guess extreme, maybe not, man. That just seems... I don't know. I feel like marijuana is great for PTSD, but you motherfuckers won't allow that. So let's just spend millions of dollars on a psychedelic instead of just, I don't know, getting a couple of weekly doobies for cheap for your soldiers that have PTSD. Man. I'll tell you, weed has worked great for my PTSD, but I don't know, man. Maybe it won't work. Maybe it won't work good for everyone. Just like this probably won't work good for everyone. But the second grant provided as part of the 2024 Defense Appropriations Act will fund a separate MDMA-assisted therapy study done in partnership between Emory University, which is in Atlanta, Georgia, and Strong Star, a medical consortium and training network based in the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio. While the U.S. government first conducted illegal experiments with psychedelics on soldiers half a century ago, this new study marks the first ever trial of MDMA for the treatment of PTSD in active duty soldiers. I can't believe they're doing it for active duty soldiers. Usually the military, they're just like, you deal with that shit until you get out, and then when you get out, you can get your medication, blah blah blah, whatever. But I'm trying to imagine someone like me back in the day. You gave me MDMA for PTSD, and I already have a smart mouth. I'm already quick on the trigger when it comes to, I don't know, sometimes talking back when it comes to bullshit. I'll still follow orders and stuff like that, but I can only imagine me on a psychedelic, walking around the installation, my company, my platoon area, around sergeants, around first sergeants. Man, I'd say some shit. I'd say some wild shit, probably. I don't know. It says it has a therapeutic effect, but is it? From what I know about psychedelics, I haven't tried many. That shit alters your state of, I don't know. Maybe they're gonna water it down so fucking much that it only applies a little bit of effect. But if this shit's gonna apply a full effect of MDMA, that this should be something that the soldiers only take on weekends, right? I don't know. I can only imagine. Maybe they're just gonna water it down and have it be something like aspirin. Something of that power, I guess. Major Aaron Wolfgang, what a name. Major Aaron Wolfgang, the head of inpatient psychiatry at Walter Reed, who specializes in treating PTSD, will be the lead author and physician of the double-blind placebo trial. And they're going all out for it, huh? Wolfgang is the first author in a systemic review and overview of MDMA and MDMA-assisted therapy featured in the January issue of the American Journal of Psychiatry. The article, written by a cohort of leading psychedelic researchers, wow, that's crazy. Y'all have a cool-ass job. Y'all just research psychedelics. Describes common misconceptions about MDMA. I think I have common misconceptions about MDMA, so let's close them now. Due to its close association with classic psychedelics like LSD, mescaline, and I can't pronounce that, psilocybin. Unlike other psychedelics, the paper says MDMA uniquely induces pro-social subjective effects of heightened trust and self-compassion while maintaining ego functioning as well as cognitive and perceptual lucidity. Okay, so it's not gonna have you walking around like, fuck you, man. Fuck you. Hey, Colonel. Fuck you. It's not gonna have you walking around like that. No. It'll help you, but at the same time, it'll still allow you to maintain cognitive abilities to where you can perform your daily duties in the army. Which is good, because I thought that you were just going to be giving a fucking crazy ass drug to these soldiers and they were going to be walking around the dining facility hitting on the staff. Like, what's up, sexy? I mean, she's like 75. Some 21-year-old private or something. That's man. That's I just graduated OSIT. I have been out of the loop with world news. What the fuck is going on? You should go back to my most recent videos, dog. We're gonna cover more. You went to OSIT training? You went to, where'd you, Fort Leonard Wood, or Fort Benning, or Fort Sill, or... To my knowledge, those are the only places that do OSIT. You do basic training and AIT at the same place, right? Also, officers do OSET training, I think, maybe. I don't know, it's some wild shit. This apparent gain of function suggests what advocates for the legalization of MDMA have been saying for decades. The drug is uniquely positioned to be a breakthrough therapeutic for PTSD and other depressive disorders. The new study expects to enroll 91 active duty service members not anticipated for redeployment. Okay, so they're not deploying anytime soon. They're not on any kind of rotation or nothing. They're not even in a unit that's on a rotation. Not to mention, we're not at combat. We're not at war with anyone at the moment. Each participant will receive 3 MDMA dosing sessions between 3 and 5 weeks apart over the course of 10 months. Okay. Participants would receive 3 preparatory sessions before the first dosing session and 3 integration sessions after each dosing session. Damn. So this kind of like, this is good and everything, but it kind of like, for me, this would kind of get on my nerves. If you're gonna give me medication, I want to take it myself. I want to take it myself. Give me enough to where there's no possible way I could OD on it, and just let me take it myself. This seems like these soldiers are gonna have to go to a building, almost like a sleep study, take it, and then maybe they're issued it and they get to take it at home. This just makes it seem like they're gonna have to be going somewhere, and the medication's issued to them. I don't know how it sounds that way. I would hope that they just get to take this shit on their own, right? And not have to show up somewhere for a session. Unlike other MDMA assisted therapy, psychedelic assisted therapy long-term studies, this one will be the first that I'm aware of to incorporate long-term follow-up that remains double-blinded, which will provide us with higher confidence data, Wolfgang said. Shoemaker, what's up, man? Oh, Fort Benning, you went infantry. Nice. You know, that's where I'm from. Claymore. That's where I grew up. Columbus, Georgia, my friend. That's where, that's my childhood. Right there. My come up. It's my teenage years. A lot of my adult years. But, yeah, I don't live there anymore. But, yeah, that whole city of Columbus. Anywhere you go, I've been there. Wherever it is, no matter what it is. The pharmaceutical company Lykos Therapeutics, formerly MAPS PBS, made a major push in December 2023 for MDMA to receive FDA approval. When approval was denied in August 2024, the result came as a shock to advocates for psychedelic-assisted therapy, many of whom were veterans and their family members. So this was once rejected for reasons unknown, and now Not even 2 years later, it gets approved for military application. All right. I guess they had to think on it, man. Really, to be honest. I guess they were like me. They heard MDMA and they were like, oh man, that doesn't even sound good. And then they looked further into it like we did when we continued to read. And they were like, oh, actually, that's not half bad. Yeah, let's try that. Let's go for it. Why not? Help our troops. That way they stop going fucking crazy and killing themselves and or other people. That'd be good, right? We could get troops out of the news, right? For PTSD related situations. Be great. You missed the one about 3D printed barracks, Claymore. That was how much money did they put into that? I think they put a couple million into that as well. DOD leadership firing sparked concerns over support for female officers. I think if you get fired as leadership, you're not doing the job properly as leadership, so therefore I do want to do this one. Hexeth orders review of military grooming and fitness standards. Because fitness and grooming, two big focal points in your everyday life in the military. Fitness and grooming. You show up, you do PT, you go home, you shave your face. That's and make sure your hair's cut. I know how most of this stuff goes. Let's see what this review is going to be. What's going to be changed, what's going to be added, what could be taken away. Me personally, I feel like we should be allowed to have beards. That's just me though. And again, I've heard it time and time again. Oh, you don't have beards because it allows your gas mask to secure to your face better. Does Special Forces and Navy SEALs, do they have problem with their gas masks with the beards? I don't think so. I don't think so. Right? And when was the last time we actually needed those fucking gas masks anyways? For any combat? Maybe they used them in Iraq. You tell me. But we did not even once use that shit when we were in Afghanistan. I didn't use it. My homies didn't use it. People that deployed before me didn't use it. Therefore, almost the entirety of the Afghanistan campaign, we did not use gas masks. Man, it's just like, who even uses gas anymore? We barely do. The enemy didn't use it on us. Is Russia using gas against Ukraine? I don't. That weapon system, that strategy, the gas. I feel like it's outdated, man. You don't really see it much anymore. So let's just stop with that excuse of we should be able to grow beards. Why not? Obviously, you keep it groomed and trimmed where you don't look like me right now, right? I look like a hobo, but anyways. And then as far as fitness, hopefully they make it harder and they don't take away like they've tried to in the past, making fat camps and shit. I don't like that. You're only as strong as your weakest link, and if man, nah. The whole purpose of being able to run 2 miles in less than 15 minutes is if, God forbid, you get put in a situation in combat where you have literally 15 minutes to get to an LZ because shit has hit the fan and you have to extract and you have to fucking hump it. Guess what? All that training, all that PT, all that running, all those 2 miles in 15 minutes shit, that will pay off. But if you can't even do that because you're overweight, you can't lose weight, you can't meet the standard, then fuck man, we don't need you. I don't need you. The platoons in a combat zone don't need you. You're just dead weight. No pun intended. You're dead weight, man. I don't know what to tell you. We don't have time for feelings here. I don't really care, but hopefully, let's see. Let's read. Okay, cool. Yeah, so they did use mop gear in Iraq. I kind of figured. I didn't want to say if they did or not and be wrong because I didn't know. I don't want to say what I don't know. But man, for a fact, bro, we did not use. Matter of fact, bro, my second deployment, my gas mask, while it was part. We're not crooked, are we? My second deployment, my gas mask, I left it at home. I left it in Georgia when I deployed. I brought it with me my first deployment, and then my second deployment, I was like, this is just gonna take up space. I'm not gonna use it. I'm not gonna need it. It's on the packing list. Fuck it. Left it. Did we ever need it? Nope. Did they ever say pull it out? Nope. Did they ever say let me see it? Let's inspect for it? Nope. Because no one actually really cared, man. I think that was just on the packing list for it to just be on the packing list. We didn't use it. Anyways. It was the threat of gas. Iraq used mustard gas against Iran in the 80s, but the Marines and soldiers never encountered gas in 03. I wonder why they didn't use it against the Marines. That's odd. Did they run out? Did it expire? Did it go bad? You know, those canisters can, I guess, not work after a time, I suppose. Those things can, I guess, expire and become duds, but... Okay. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth issued a memo Wednesday ordering senior Pentagon leadership to conduct a review of military standards related to health and appearance across all services. Air Force needs to be looked at the most, bro. For real. The message calls for the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness to collect information pertaining to physical fitness, body composition, and grooming, so that the department can conduct a thorough overview of how and why those standards have changed since January 1st, 2015. We must remain vigilant in maintaining the standards that enable the men and women of our military to protect the American people and our homeland as the most lethal and effective fighting force. And we won't be any less effective if we have beards. I'm just saying. Our adversaries are not growing weaker, and our tasks are not growing less challenging. Currently, military personnel can only grow facial hair with a waiver or exemption for a medical condition, religious accommodation, or other approved reasoning. So, for those of you that don't know what that means, that's what's called a profile. Profile for facial hair would fall under the categories of religious accommodation. Maybe you're Muslim, and another accommodation would be for black dudes. They break out, man. Shaving for them, their skin very sensitive. Lots of them have shaving profiles to where they can grow a little bit, right? They're accommodated for. And that's about it. That's about it. Or unless you have like bad acne, you just got bad acne as a 21, 22-year-old, that sucks for you, but you just do, they might give you a profile for that, a shaving exemption, but yeah, so. Some services have signaled that they might be more receptive to loosening those rules. Hey, let's go. Kind of pisses me off that you're doing this after my service, but let's go. The Air Force granted 5-year medical waivers for beards in 2020, whereas previously it had only given 1-year waivers, and has weighed establishing a pilot program that would allow participating airmen and guardians to grow out their facial hair. I'm happy and mad all at the same time. Certain troops experience a medical condition called pseudo-holiasis, which leads to unwanted bumps and painful ingrown hair from shaving regularly. Yeah, but again, like I said, that was mainly more along the lines of usually the black guys, man. About 60% of black men are affected by the condition, exactly, according to the American Osteopathic College of Dermatology. Yes, constant shaving for black dudes, that fucks up their skin, their face, man. But there is still tension surrounding the issue. Why? Man, as long as we're effective, who cares what we look like? That's what I've always thought. In May 2024, an Army Master Sergeant with the 25th Infantry Division alleged he lost out on a position because of his beard. That's so stupid. Infantry Master Sergeant? You know how much experience that guy has? You know how much knowledge that guy has? You know how badass that guy probably is? You turned it down because of... Yo, dude, we're the Army, not the New York Yankees, man. I wish we would stop with this shit of just like, it doesn't look perfect. Who cares? You're not out there, are you? Who cares? Hegseth's focus on physical fitness also comes several weeks after a federal watchdog criticized the Army for admitting trainees into a fitness course whose body fat composition exceeded the course's standards and should have barred them from entering. Yes, that's called fat camp, ladies and gentlemen. And when I was in the military, we did have a version of fat camp, but it wasn't labeled fat camp. It was called remedial PT. If you failed a PT test, or if you failed weight and tape, you would have to do remedial PT. What does this mean? This means that instead of sleeping in on Saturday after a night of drinking, you are on the installation with your platoon sergeant doing PT at 6 o'clock in the morning. And on Sunday, you're doing PT at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then you do PT Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then again on the weekends until you pass your PT test. Now, when I was in the service, they did that for a couple people. After a certain amount of time, if you still can't pass your PT test, they are just going to med board your ass out of the military. Well, actually, not med board. They are just going to kick you out of the military, and the reasoning will be failure to adapt. You can't maintain the standards. That's just it. You can't, right? And it's not a dishonorable discharge, I don't think. I think it's an honorable discharge. You couldn't do the job, man. And they really should start looking at this shit at basic training. Basic training is where you should weed these fuckers out, to be honest. This shouldn't be a problem for everyday NCOs and commanders. Like, you should get there ready to go. You should get there prepared, like already in shape. So, or maybe they did get there in shape, and after a certain amount of time, they let themselves go, and they got lazy and blah 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 and yada yada. But and now they can't pass it, but still they'll get separated. That's it. The report raised questions about the health of recruits as well as the Army's understanding of its own standards for physical fitness. The Army announced in 2024 its intention to expand its holistic health and fitness program, established in 2018, to the entire service by 2032. The program seems to educate service members on the best ways to improve physical, mental, and sleep aspects of their lives. Dog, I honestly don't see anything wrong with the physical fitness regimen that we had when I was in the service. It was push-ups, sit-ups, and running. That's it. Push-ups, sit-ups, and running. That's what we did. Shuttle sprints. Front back goes. Suicides. It almost, you know what? PT for me, when I was in the military, it almost reminded me of working out in high school for baseball. Doing suicides, front back goes, running poles, shuttle sprints, burpees. That's a military thing, not so much a high school sport thing. Iron mics, lunges, like the whole fucking nine, man. That was our thing, dude. And for our squad leader, it was just like, yo, I'm gonna fucking work y'all's asses, either until you puke or until I notice that you're on the verge of puking, and then we'll call it a day. And that was it. I don't know, man. Uh, Personally, I believe there ought to be more weightlifting mixed in with the cardio. Agreed. Agreed. However, I will tell you, given the fact that I didn't lift any weights, I was still strong as fuck. I was as strong as I possibly could have been for my size at that time, because I did way more back then, right? Just off of the daily workouts that I did, man. Push-ups, sit-ups, and running. And that's what the PT test was. That's what the PT test was, because it tests everything about you. It tests your core, tests your leg strength, tests your upper body strength, and it tests your endurance. It tests everything that a combat situation would test, right? Except for the anxiety and quite possibly tunnel vision you might get and fucking, yada yada. But as far as the physical aspect, all you have to worry about now is the mental aspect, which isn't it great when you don't have to worry about something in combat? It clears your mind up for other stuff. But if you go into combat thinking like, oh my god, man, I don't know how I'm gonna make it up that mountain, and you're like thinking about making it up the fucking mountain instead of, I don't know, watching your six, watching your buddy's six, watching your sectors of fire and shit like that, then you're not focused. You just ain't. So it's just, I think that the way it was when I was in it worked, man. And people that couldn't make it, they got separated. Like, dude, one of my best friends in the service, he got med boarded out of the military because he could no longer pass a PT test because of a knee injury. Sometimes you can't do it. That's just it. He couldn't pass the PT test, and then they were starting to get pissed with him, and he was like, look, dude, I have fucking knee problem. I keep telling y'all that I have fucking knee problem. And then finally, they took him seriously. He went to the doctor, and they were like, yeah, bro, his knee is rough. I can't believe he didn't come to us last year. And they were like, oh, okay, right. So instead of separating him for failure to adapt, he just got a med board. He could no longer physically do the job because of an injury that he sustained while in the service. So, yeah. But that's good. I read some good things in here. There's specific people that are more receptive, that are starting to become more receptive to beards. So hopefully that ideology snowballs downwards to other leadership and other people of influence within the Pentagon or something. I don't know, man. I think we should have beards, so that's going in the right direction. They mentioned the profiles for people. I don't think that needs any changing. If some people have religious exemptions, that's fine. You do the beard. I think everyone should be able to have a beard, and then just do away with the profiles, right? If you let everyone grow a beard, you could throw away these exemptions. And then your Muslims, they can have their beards. The black dudes, they can have their beards. And then everyone can have their beards. And then you no longer need profiles. You no longer need exemptions. You no longer need to go out of your way to provide dermatology stuff or it's but when they grow it out, make sure that it's somewhat manageable, clean. The complete opposite of what mine is right now. So okay, I think there was one more I want to check out, and then we'll move to the list. In the UK, they can have beards. I think they can have beards in Australia too, in the Australian military. Or no, I'm not sure. Ooh, good lord. That is wild. South Dakota airman charged in killing a woman, missing since August. South Dakota Airman? Is it just an airman that's from South Dakota? There's not an Air Force base in South Dakota. Is it? I think this guy's just from South. Good lord. I think this guy's just from South Dakota. Yeah, you got that one. I might click on that one. VA leaders announce end to all transgender related care for veterans. Good. Yeah, that just really does seem like something you can do on your own time with your own money. On your own volition. With your own chosen medical professional. Y'all want to take a look at that one, or do y'all want to take a look at the South Dakota man, or... There are tributes in here too, man. Like, pretty cool stuff that I feel like I would see like on a Fat Electrician video. Like shit like this, dude. This Philippine scout fired his rifle with one hand to save his squad. In 1911, Private Jose Nisperos became the first Filipino and Asian recipient of the Medal of Honor. There's like cool ass stories like that on here too. Meet Lieutenant Preston, one of the only PT crewmen to be awarded the Medal of Honor. PT? That's another one that I could probably see on a Fat Electrician video. Pentagon leaker Jack Teixeira pleads guilty to obstruction of justice. I don't even know who that is. Okay, I'm not going to load more, so it's gonna have to be one of these. Let's do it. Let's see. Y'all have stuff on the list, right? That way we can transition quickly after we do this one. I think it's, what, Fat Electrician? Alright. VA leaders announce end to all transgender-related care for vets. Veteran Affairs officials announced Monday that they will phase out all medical treatments for gender dysphoria, including hormone therapy and any surgical options for transgender veterans. I cannot even believe that it was there to begin with. It's wild. Thanks, Biden, but no thanks. In a statement, VA Secretary Doug Collins said that the VA should not be focused on helping veterans attempt to change their sex. I agree, and claimed most Americans and veterans would support the decision. Yes, I do. This is not the place for that at all, whatsoever. This is, VA is to help and or fix problems that you acquired in the military. To fix military related problems, combat related problems, armed forces related problems, service member related problems. And changing your sex has nothing to do with anything of what I just said at all whatsoever. So I absolutely agree. All eligible veterans, including trans-identified veterans, will always be welcome at VA and will always receive the benefits and services they've earned under the law, just not those. Collins said, but if veterans want to attempt to change their sex, they can do so on their own dime. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. That's all we were asking, really. I can't believe it took us so long to reach such a logical conclusion. Imagine. The move came as outside advocates condemned a decision by Veteran Affairs leaders last week to rescind a policy ensuring healthcare for transgender and intersex veterans, predicting catastrophic mental and physical health consequences for patients dependent on the services. So basically, if you take this away from us, we'll scream. That's what that says. If we can't have our way, We're gonna scream and stomp our feet like a spoiled child at Toys R Us. That's what we're gonna do. That's what that says, man. I wish y'all would stop using that as an excuse. If you do this, it will have catastrophic effects on my mental health, and I don't know, man. I don't know what my future is gonna look like. I don't even know if I'll be here. I don't even know if I'll be here tomorrow if you go through with this. Like that type of shit, bruh. Trying to guilt people like that when clearly this shouldn't even be a thing to begin with. Like that's just it's weird. Really. This decision is a direct attack on the dignity. Here we go. See? Here we go. It's always like, if we can't have our way, we're just gonna play victim. We can't think of any good reason on why we should have this, so we're just gonna stomp our feet, cry, play victim. This decision is a direct attack on the dignity and well-being of transgender. Why? Because we won't pay for it? What? It's like a homeless person asking me for money, and I say, oh, I ain't got none. He's like, you're directly attacking me as a homeless person because you refuse to give me money. What? No, I just don't have any. We live in the digital age, my man. I don't carry cash. Sorry. But in his eyes, I'm directly attacking him because I don't want to give him money. Y'all feel directly attacked because the military doesn't want to pay for you to change your sex, because that shouldn't be something that the military pays for. You're altering your body. You know what else is considered altering your body? Tattoos. The military don't pay for that shit either. But let's calm down. Let's calm down, please, for everybody. This decision will force our community to defer or delay care and opt out of VA services altogether. You're gonna opt out of the great benefits that you'll get simply because you're not getting this one. You just burn it all down out of spite, huh? Because you can't get your way on one key point. That's crazy. This decision will exacerbate our already devastatingly high suicide rates and push more veterans into crisis for no reason other than hate. That's the same garbage, regurgitated talking points that we hear all the goddamn time. My mental state, my mental state, my mental state. Bro, we're in the military, man. We all got a fucked up mental state. A lot of us do. And a lot of us aren't even transgender, man. A lot of us commit suicide and we're not transgender. Pretty sure the suicide rate for soldiers in general is higher than the suicide rate for transgenders. Just trying to appropriate statistics for your own cause right there, really. VA is abandoning those who have served. No, they're not. They're still going to give you benefits, just not that one. Stripping us of critical healthcare protections and sending a clear message that our lives and service to our country do not matter. There it is. Oh God, you ever get tired of being the victim? You ever get tired of playing victim? Jesus Christ, y'all, my goodness. Y'all would make great extras in disaster movies because y'all are just always victims of something. On Friday, an internal memo announced the change to VA staff. The withdrawn directive, originally approved in 2018 during President Donald Trump's first term in office, covered both medical care for transgender and intersex veterans as well as dignity in care, requiring the staff avoid using derogatory terms or misgendered language when assessing patients. See? That right there is why it's going away. Right there. 1, it doesn't make any sense for the military to pay for it. 2, it doesn't make any sense to, I don't know, man, put a halt on what they're doing just to spare your feelings, bro. Requiring the staff to avoid using derogatory terms, bro. They're medical personnel. You can't. What's the word I'm looking for? You can't restrict the work of a medical personnel because then that medical personnel cannot do their job properly. You can't restrict them that way. That's why y'all can't be here, bro. And that's why y'all aren't going to get paid any money to change your sex, because of all of the extra bullshit that comes along with you, with what you are. That's just it. You're too complicated. The military doesn't like complicated. That's it. It also required data collection on those veterans in an effort to compile more information on the community. In a statement with the memo withdrawn, VA leaders said the move was made to conform with a presidential executive order from January requiring agencies to use clear and accurate language and policies that recognize women are biological female and men are biological male. Oh, okay, so what we've known to be true for millennia, I think, centuries, man. They noted that many aspects of transgender care, including gender-affirming surgeries and cosmetic reconstruction surgeries, were not authorized under existing department regulations. Officials in President Joe Biden's administration had taken steps towards providing those services, but did not finalize those rules. Sounds about right for the Joe Biden administration. Tell you they're going to do something, they either don't do it or never finish it. Acting Undersecretary for Health Stephen Lieberman said in the memo that the department will still adhere to its commitment to provide care to all veterans, including trans-identifying veterans. They're just not going to pay for you to change their sex. It's almost like y'all are skipping past that one key point right there, and y'all just keep complaining. In their statement Monday, VA leaders said that the change does not affect VA medical care for eligible veterans who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual. I can't even believe we're having this conversation. They also promised care and treatment to veterans that are compatible with generally accepted standards of medical practice and determined by appropriate healthcare professionals. They did not provide specifics on what those limits mean. Rachel Brannaman, executive director of Modern Military Association of America, called the policy rollback a direct assault on the well-being of vulnerable. Can't even read that with a straight face. Combined with the administration's planned cut of 80,000 VA employees, these actions demonstrate a blatant disregard for the nation's commitment to those who serve. Oh God, dude, the world's on fire to y'all, huh? I'm chilling. Democratic lawmakers said they will look for ways to stop the change. In a statement, House Veterans Affairs Committee ranking Mark Takano called the move shameful and cruel and accused the department of politicizing veterans care. Kind of like how y'all are doing right now with all y'all's buzzwords like direct assault, vulnerable LGBTQ, mental health, suicide rate, like all these things that you normally would hear coming out of a dumbass's face on CNN, and we're the ones politicizing. Get the fuck out of here, man! Come on now, nah, please. The Veterans Health Administration should be focused on supporting and providing quality health care to our veterans, not furthering Republicans' obsessive attacks on the right, dignity, and existence of the transgender community, he said. VA leaders said they will conduct a review of all transgender care and undergo the rulemaking process to revise the medical benefits package as deemed necessary. You know what it is? You know what? You know what it is? I look at it like this. Us soldiers, everything that the military has to do to put a soldier together, to build a soldier, right? I equate it to putting together a small little Lego Batman, right? It's simple, it's probably quick, couple of pieces here, couple of pieces there, boom, you got it, right? Tick, 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 click, done, right? But with the transgender community and the service, it's like building something from IKEA. So to build us normal soldiers, it's a little tiny Lego, takes like 5 minutes, click, done. But with transgenders, it's like building something from IKEA, and it didn't come with instructions. And you're just like, man, fuck this. This is too complicated. This is too much. I can't stand this. No, I'm gonna go get something more simple that takes less effort and that probably looks the same and even operates the same. This is too much. I can't do it. It's over the top, bro, and it's not even worth it. That's kind of how I look at it. That's kind of how it is, really, for the military. They don't like overcomplicated. I'm telling you, they don't like overcomplicated, which is ironic for me to say because they like to overcomplicate everything in daily military life. But when it comes to stuff like this is just, it's too much. It's too much. Collins said that any money saved from eliminating transgender healthcare can go to more ammo, man, more ammo. For me, at least. That's just me. Collins said that any money saved from eliminating transgender healthcare services would be directed to help severely injured VA beneficiaries such as paralyzed veterans and amputees. Okay, I really do like the ammo idea, but we can go with that too. Regain their independence. Officials did not provide any estimate on how much funding would be shifted under the plan. So, any money that is saved by eliminating the transgender healthcare services will be used to help paralyzed veterans and amputees. And you motherfuckers are still mad. You motherfuckers are still complaining. Who do you think has it worse? A paralyzed veteran or an amputee? Or someone who thinks he's a girl? Who has it worse? I can't even believe that was even brought up in the article, because that just completely makes everyone complaining about this, it makes y'all look like jackasses. Because this deserves more money than that. You see what I'm saying? And y'all are complaining? And y'all are mad? This is gonna do good stuff. The National Center for Transgender Equality has estimated there are more than 134,000 transgender veterans in America today. VA officials said they believe fewer than 9,000 of the department's 9.1 million veterans enrolled in medical care services are transgender. All right. That's just funny. It's almost like they're ignoring every single positive and every single thing that makes sense about taking away this funding. And they're just playing the victim at every single possible turn of the conversation. That's crazy. And look, at the end of the day, I fall on the side of, if you can maintain the physical standard and you can shoot, move, and communicate, and you're a good soldier, and you can be at the right place at the right time, in the right uniform, you can serve next to me. I don't really care what you do, who you are, what you think you are, or where you came from. Shoot, move, communicate. Do your job. Stay fit. Be a soldier. You know? And then on Fridays and Saturdays, you can be Felicia. Whatever you want to do, man. But from Monday to Friday, be a soldier. Act accordingly. Behave accordingly. Do the thing. That's it. That's the side that I fall on, really. So, and hey, there's soldiers that I've served with that weren't transgender, man, that I didn't want to serve next to them. A shitty soldier's a shitty soldier. None of this shit matters, really. So if you can do what I said, none of this stuff matters at the end of the day. Because when it comes to combat and it comes to someone shooting at you and you shooting back at the enemy, the only people in the world right there in that situation is you and your battle buddies, and they could give a rat's fuck what you do on your free time. Because the objective is survive. That's it. That's the objective. None of that other shit matters. None of that other social justice shit matters. None of that fucking politically correct shit matters. It's kill or be killed, do the job. So that's just hold on. Is it bad that the entire article I've been thinking about what do you call an amateur circumcision? Okay. We'll move on. Let me go back to the P-51 Mustang, and the man who won the World War II air war with it. Didn't Fat Electrician just do a video on that? Nah, hold on. Tommy Hitchcock? Where the fuck are you? No, never mind. Almost. Terry Allen. I was about to say, this motherfucker is fast. Alright. Let me pull up the Discord and see what was on the You got some Mr. Ballin. And oh, okay, yeah, Terry Allen, bet. Sounds good, my dudes. Oh shit. Hold on now. This is something y'all might be into. I've never played this. I know of this game though. I've never played it. I've seen gameplay and I've seen other people play it, but The Last of Us Part 2 nails combat better than most war games. That's kind of hard to believe, to be honest. I've never played The Last of Us. Because you think that I feel like Battlefield 4 kind of nailed the combat the absolute best. Rainbow Six Siege does pretty good at nailing some aspects of combat as well. That's mainly just like SWAT though and police. See what else? I don't know. Let's. Ahead of the April 13th premiere of Season 2 of HBO's post-apocalyptic drama series The Last of Us, based on the acclaimed video game series, fans are revisiting its source material sequel, Last of Us Part 2, a title that even 5 years after its 2020 release still outperforms many modern military shooters in realism. For real though? Or is that just an opinion? Because there's a lot of Call of Duty games, Battlefield games that really nailed it home. And dude, Medal of Honor was so realistic that it got banned at AFES stores. AFES is like the mall of military installations. AFES, like the post exchange, the PX, it got banned. It was so damn realistic. So that's like very hard to believe that this game While shooter franchises like Call of Duty, Battlefield, and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six claim to deliver the most immersive combat experiences, few demand players think, move, and fight like a soldier as effectively as The Last of Us Part 2. Alright, I mean, many military shooters prioritize speed and reflexes over actual battlefield tactics. I mean, what about squads? Squads is, right? Squads, what is it, what's the other one? I would think that a milsim game would be at the top of this list. Not The Last of Us. That seems so strange. In Call of Duty, for example, players can slide, cancel, bunny hop, blah, 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 sprint, full speed combat, which isn't realistic in the slightest. But I never looked at the way they move as realistic. I can suspend my disbelief for that. With the realism, I look at the weapons, how they fire, the recoil, the distance. That's why I like Battlefield, because Battlefield really does make the weapons seem real. You have to lead your shots. There's bullet travel. There's bullet drop. There's everything is incorporated into, like, it's really good. So maybe one day I'm gonna have to play The Last of Us if this is the case, because I just don't believe it. Arma, right? I would figure that there would be like so many other like milsim games. And I think someone that doesn't know much about video games wrote this article, bro. I'm not gonna say he's wrong. I might have to play it for myself. Even Battlefield, known for large-scale engagement, relies on sprint-heavy gameplay rather than methodical positioning. I mean, when they stormed the beaches of Normandy, bro, they weren't exactly walking. So, I mean, what the fuck are you talking about? That's like, there's a lot of sprinting that happens in combat. Roy Benavidez sprinted through the entire Vietnam jungle slaying motherfuckers. What are you saying? Sprint-heavy game. I know what you mean, though. Like, sometimes being more tactful and like finding a position, holding that position, watching an angle, waiting for your shot. I get what you're saying, but like let's not get delusional here, okay? In contrast, The Last of Us is about deliberate movement, situational awareness. Every step feels weighty. Single mistake, running too loud. Isn't that Tarkov? Escape from Tarkov? Isn't that a thing? Escape from Tarkov is kind of realistic, right? Or no? I've seen gameplay, seen people play it. Stepping into the open too soon or getting caught in a bad position can mean death. All right, well, we'll stop there. We'll watch this fat electrician video. But I just thought that I had to click on that one. I thought that was interesting. I never would have thought that Last of Us would be the one game that the Army Times would deem the most realistic. I don't think they've ever played Medal of Honor. If you've ever played Medal of Honor, or you want to talk about realistic, and do you want to know the reason the game was banned, by the way? Because I said that earlier. Do you want to know the reason that Medal of Honor was banned in AFI stores, in military PXs? Is because I don't know if it was the first Medal of Honor or the second Medal of Honor. I think it was the second one. But in the game, you could play as Taliban and kill Americans. Banned, bro. And this is like when I was like first starting to get like super into shooters, because at the time I think Call of Duty Modern Warfare was coming out, and then a little bit after that, boom, Medal of Honor came out, and I was like, I'm gonna fucking play this. And I went, and they were like, yeah, we don't have that. And I was like, what, late shipment? What's going on? They were like, oh no, we're not allowed to sell that here. I was like, why? They were like, DOD said so. I was like, what, did the DOD play it? Can they tell me if it was good? Like, what's going? So I think it was what ended up happening is I went to go that day. I had gone to go pick up my copy of Medal of Honor, and they didn't have it, right? And I ended up walking out of the store with a copy of a game called Bulletstorm. And I have never had more fun. Bulletstorm. If y'all have never played it, a game from back in the day, mid 2000s, I'm gonna say like 2008, 2009, maybe 2010, around that time. Bulletstorm. I had so much fun playing that game, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this game exists. I had such a good time. I beat it on every difficulty. I unlocked every achievement. I played every fucking thing. And I was like, wow, what a great pick. What a great secondary pick that I just made there. And then the next game that I went and bought was Duke Nukem, and that game blew ass. I was like, this is fucking trash. Holy. Anyways. Alright. Bad electrician. No, oh dude, that's so funny. People are losing their minds over Snow White. Again. Great. Should watch something on that.
What do you want? What's that really good non-alcoholic beer I keep hearing about?
Do you have that really?
All right, do y'all want big screen, little screen? This one? Okay. All right, most gangster general of World War II. Back when generals actually went into combat. If you were ever in the service, I don't know your experience, but did you ever have a general with you on foot patrol? A convoy? for an extended amount of time, because I know that when I was deployed to Afghanistan, we had to escort General Petraeus on a foot patrol. He was there for all of like, I don't know, a day and a half, and then dipped, and we never saw him again, right? But as far as like actually having this dude with you the entirety of a deployment, firefights in the shit, giving orders, blah blah blah, right there with the privates and the sergeants and stuff like that. I feel like this type of general is specific to that time and that time only. I don't know if we'll ever see a general on the front line ever again in modern day. This really, I feel, really was something of the days of old, where generals and fucking majors and these high-ranking motherfuckers, not only did they give orders, not only were they the command, but they were also out there putting rounds down range alongside their other counterparts. It just didn't matter. You led from the front. That's what an officer was. And these days, I feel like all of our officers lead from an office. You can't spell officer without office. Isn't that hilarious? Okay, I'm sorry. Let's get this started.
Who'd ever get shot in the face and benefit from it.
Oh, wait, hold on.
This guy's probably the only dude to ever get shot in the face and benefit from it. Today we're talking.
I mean, it wasn't in the face, but 50 Cent did get shot 9 times, and he benefited greatly from that. Anyways.
About the most gangster general of World War II, Terry De La Mesa Allen, a.k.a. Terrible Terry. A nickname given...
You know you're a badass if your nickname is Terrible. You either were like terrible as in like you were a bad dude, or you were in terrible as in like you were a bad dude, but also a lot of people didn't fucking like you.
To him not by his enemies, but by his fellow high-ranking officers for failing out of West Point, scamming his way through infantry officer school, and being a poor disciplinarian. Terry Allen did not care about the dog and pony show side of the United States military.
I love him already, and I want to serve for him. If you don't care about the dog and pony show, you are my kind of officer. You are my kind of leader. I will follow you anywhere.
He didn't care if his men called him general or sir. Most of them just referred to him as Terry. He did not hound his men about uniforms and grooming standards, and he certainly did not think of himself as above his men. He considered himself one of them. He gambled with them, he drank with them, and he fought with them on the front lines.
They don't make them like this anymore. They don't. I'm sorry to repeat myself, but they don't make them like this anymore, man.
Legendary war correspondent Ermi Pyle describes Terry Allen as one of his favorite people and the true soldier's general. Another war correspondent described him as the greatest leader of men and tactical general in our army, while his contemporaries described him as, and I quote, a soldier of uncertain future in peacetime army, but certainly should be entrusted with a division in a time of war. Terry Allen is a rare case of a high-ranking...
Yeah, that's a soldier of uncertain future in peacetime army. So basically this general was the equivalent, it's just like me, or I'm just like him in regard, because being in garrison, that wasn't for me. It wasn't. But in combat, I thrived. I did. I thrived. In garrison, that felt like jail. Really, I couldn't cope. It was hard for me, man. Very, very difficult for me. Peacetime army, but in combat, I felt at home. I felt more relaxed. There was less people. There was less bullshit. There was less dog and pony. There was less politics. There was less everything. I would have much rather preferred to spend my entire service deployed as opposed to Fort Stewart or any one of these installations where it's just like, you're kissing ass all day, every day, or just trying to avoid it. And that's not fun, man. It's not fun for anyone. And you ask any soldier right now, he will choose a leader like this 10 out of 10 times, every single time.
Should be entrusted with a division in a time of war. Terry Allen is a rare case of a high-ranking officer being more concerned about the opinions of the men below him instead of the men above him. Yeah. And it absolutely infuriated many of his fellow generals.
And the NCOs that I had, they were more they were more interested in the opinions of the people above them so that they can get promoted, as opposed to the opinions of people below them that had all the good ideas, but because you were a bastard with a fucking ego, you're not going to listen to your soldiers and blah blah blah. It's just like
Despite that, he was so overwhelmingly effective on the battlefield that General Patton himself refused to go into battle without him. He was so overwhelmingly popular with the men that served beneath him and war correspondents that he actually ended up on the cover of Time magazine in World War II. Despite that, 99% of you have probably never heard a single thing about him. And today we're gonna fix that right after a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Ridge Wallet. Okay, look, this is like the 10th time we've gone over the Ridge Wallet on this channel. I'm not gonna keep kicking a dead horse.
Yeah, dude, he seems a lot like me, man. In Garrison, I wasn't a bad soldier, man. I wasn't, but like in Garrison, if it was stupid, I told you, and it didn't matter your rank. If it was stupid, I let you know it was stupid. Sergeant, staff sergeant, master sergeant, sergeant first class. It didn't matter. Like, no, that's not a good idea. My idea is better. We should try my idea, and if it doesn't work, then we'll try your lackluster idea. That's definitely not going to work. But let's try something that might actually work first, right? And some sergeants didn't like that. Some high-ranking people didn't like the fact that I knew all the rules, man. I knew AR 670-1. I knew the haircut standards, I knew the uniform standards, I knew all of that stuff. So whenever someone would try to fuck with me, I'd be like, actually, according to AR 670-1, I am within regulations. So you just need to kind of like kindly fuck off, or go get my sergeant and he will tell you to kindly fuck off. Not a lot of people liked me above the rank of E6, but everyone E5 and below absolutely loved me. And that's all I cared about. Everyone E5 and below, man, they loved me. They couldn't say enough good things about me, but the E6s and up, they were just like, that goddamn Falcon, bro. Like, I swear to God, this motherfucker. That was their attitude, really. So I was loved by the lower enlisted. I was despised by the higher ranking people. That's just the way it went. Aside from my platoon sergeants, all of my platoon sergeants loved me. Staff Sergeant Villacorte, he was my platoon sergeant, loved me. Sergeant First Class Torres, my platoon sergeant, he loved me. Staff Sergeant Vasquez, he was my platoon sergeant. He liked me. He didn't love me. He just liked me. And then so, yeah, I was good with all of them, but like with everybody else that I would encounter, they'd be like, that goddamn Falcon, bro, he's too much. But that's just the way it was, man. So I relate to this man, really. I like, and especially the fact that he's so much higher ranking than I was. It's crazy. It's just like, thank God someone else like me that is of higher rank. It's not all stuffy and full of cocksuckers up there, you know? There's someone actually up there that doesn't really give a fuck about all this extra shit. It's just crazy.
All right, our story begins April 1st, 1888. A young Terry De La Mesa Allen is born.
Hold on, before we start this. Ow. What the fuck? Does this really get stuck in my hair? Before we start this, give me a second. I'm gonna grab some more coffee. I'm gonna smoke real quick. And then, hold on. Because I have to turn off the fucking coffee pot. I forgot it was on. Okay. All right, are you ready? Ugh.
Born at Fort Douglas, Utah.
I'm sorry.
Let's get back to the video. All right, our story begins April 1st, 1888. A young Terry De La Mesa Allen is born at Fort Douglas, Utah. Terry Allen was not only born on a military installation, he was basically bred to be in the military. His father was Colonel Samuel Allen, who served 43 years in the Army. And his grandfather on his mother's side was Colonel Carlos Alvarez De La Mesa, who fought in the Civil War at Gettysburg.
Damn.
Terry grew up his entire life on military installations in the West. The first thing this guy learned how to do after he learned how to walk was to ride a horse, drink, chew tobacco, gamble, and shoot the shit like an enlisted cavalry soldier. By the time he was 10 years old, he was basically in the United States Army because he went to work with his dad and followed him around every single day. So at 19 years old, Terry goes off to West Point. He becomes pretty well known for basically two things. He's phenomenal at riding a horse and doing anything that actually involves like being a soldier out in the field, and he's absolutely horrible at everything else and shows no motivation to improve upon it whatsoever. He racks up more demerits than anybody else in his class at West Point. His uniform's never perfect. His fingernails are always dirty. He's always drinking in class. He's cheating on exams. The exact type of behavior that you would expect from a child that grew up his entire life with enlisted men out in the field.
Okay, I wasn't that bad. But I did have my fair share of counselings. They were called demerits back then. They're just called counseling statements now. Or maybe that changed. I don't know. Yo, August, what's good, man? That's funny.
Because of this, he is not very popular with his classmates because, well, it's the
He keeps getting them smoked, probably. Mass punishment has always existed.
1900s, and at this point in time, the officer class is still very much that same aristocratic class from, you know, the higher society, and Terry Allen isn't taking their dog and pony show very seriously.
Oh, never mind. They were all little rich fuckers, and he wasn't. He was like a blue-collar kid. Not really blue. I mean, his dad was in the military, but they're all rich and snobby. And he was like, I don't really give a fuck about how you hold the fork and you putting your pinky up when you. I don't give a fuck about that. Just stop it.
And on top of that, he also has a very severe stutter when he talks, so everybody kind of like gives him shit and makes fun of him. Because of this, at the age of 21, he ends up getting kicked out of West Point. Not taking no for an answer, he goes and enlists in a Catholic university, graduates at the age of 24, enlists in the Army, and then competes for a slot to be a cavalry officer. And he wins. He ends up getting commissioned about 5 months after his class at West Point. From here, Terry is pretty much immediately sent to the southern border between the United
I hope he runs into his old classmates and he's like, what's up, fuckers? Like, that's gonna be great.
States and Mexico, where he is tasked with stopping smugglers and gun runners from crossing the border. He gets in frequent skirmishes, and this is his first taste of combat. And when he's not doing that, he has to go and, you know, intermingle with his fellow officer class and their hoity-toity aristocratic society nonsense. And obviously, Terry's still not super popular. He's still rough around the edges. He's still kind of disheveled. He's got dirt under his fingernails. He likes to drink. He likes to cuss, and he's still got that stutter. But Terry does gain some popularity because you know what the hoity-toity officer class likes doing? They like playing polo. And you know what Terry's really good at? Riding a horse, which comes in handy when you're playing polo. Oh. Terry ends up becoming one of the best polo players around and ends up being the captain of his team. And they have this game slotted up where he's supposed to go up against this like regional champion team, and they're supposed to absolutely crush Terry's team. But Terry doesn't care what's supposed to happen. Terry wants to win regardless. So he makes his team go out and practice for weeks leading up to this game. And for practice, he has them shooting goals on a target that's only 1 yard wide when the average polo goal is 8 yards wide.
Damn.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
That's hard.
So Terry essentially overtrains his team.
Yo, that is still living rent-free in my head to this day. I fucking love that movie. Okay.
And when that game comes around, the regional champion team takes 40 shots at the goal. They only make 7. Terry's team only takes 8 shots at the goal, but they made all 8. And this is the first glimpse we get to see at Terry's leadership and his mentality of how to get shit done.
You're about to be entrusted with top secret information.
Holy shit. I'm so tired of Moana. I've watched that movie like 5 times this week.
This goes on for a couple of years, and then World War I kicks off, and Terry wants to go off to war. Unfortunately, his current unit is going to stay right where they're at the southern border. So Terry volunteers for overseas duty, so he essentially just gets backfilled into any open slot, which unfortunately happens to be in a supply company. So he's going to go overseas and just carry supplies up to the front line and not actually get to fight on the front lines. But that's not what Terry wants. Terry wants to be on the front lines with the infantry. The problem is he can't really do that because he's not an infantry officer. He's a cavalry officer. So Terry comes up with a plan. He just shows up to an
Just lie.
infantry officer graduation ceremony and hops in line, gets to the front of the line, and the commandant looks Terry up and down and is like, I don't recognize you. And Terry looks the dude dead ass in the eye and goes, I'm Alan. Why don't you? And the officer's like kind of taken aback, like, am I the dick here? Do I really not remember this guy that went through my entire course? And he's just like, doesn't know what to do. So he just hands Terry the certificate and sends him on his way. And Terry is now a temporary major and infantry officer. So Terry ships off to World War I in charge of an infantry battalion. Once there,
It was that easy, huh? That's it?
Terry partakes in the St. Mihiel Offensive and the Battle of the Meuse-Argonne, literally the biggest battle that America has ever fought in, ever. And while he's there, Terry is tearing shit up, okay? He is on the front lines fighting with his men. He ends up getting wounded 4 separate times.
Golly.
The first time it happens, he wakes up in the aid station, looks around like, what the fuck is going on? Sees the medical tag around him with like all of his, vitals and all of his BS and everything that's wrong with him, rips that off and goes back to the front line. Another one of his injuries comes when Terry is shot in the face. Not only does Terry survive and go back into combat, but he actually benefits from getting shot in the face because for some reason, it cures his stutter. And this is really where we start to see the most gangster general start to come into play, right? Like getting wounded on the front line with your men and returning to combat before the doctor says you can. Pretty gangster. Getting shot in the face, surviving, and then returning to combat. Very gangster. But getting shot in the face and having the old adage, what doesn't kill you make you stronger, actually apply because you not only survive, you not only return to combat, but you show back up and you suddenly speak better is undeniably the most gangster shit that's ever happened ever. As World War I continues to go on, Terry gets more and more comfortable in combat. This is where he really thrives and he starts
I can't even believe that. That's fucking insane.
to get a lot of ideas of his own. And one of the things he comes up with is like, why the fuck are we fighting in the daylight? You know what I mean? Like, let's fight at night where nobody can see shit. It's pure chaos, and Americans thrive in chaos. So one day, Terry gets ordered to take a position, and the estimated casualties of taking this objective are gonna be like 200 to 300 men. So Terry is like, fuck that. You know what we're gonna do? Instead of attacking tomorrow when we're supposed to attack, we're gonna attack tonight when it's dark. Okay, now at this point, that's not how you conduct warfare, okay? Not a lot of people are launching night attacks in trench warfare, but you know what? Terry just showed back up after...
Especially with no NVGs for the time. It is straight up night. Straight up a night op, man. That's
getting shot in the face, and now he speaks better. Fucking, I'll follow that guy into any amount of combat anywhere. And that's pretty much how all of his men felt, except for one company commander. This company commander is like, no, we can't do that. We need to follow orders. We need to do exactly what we're told. We can't attack at night. You're going to get us all killed, yada, yada, yada. Finally, Terry just gets fed up of hearing this dude, pulls out his pistol, and shoots him through the ass cheek. Terry then looks at this company commander and says, and I quote, "There, you're out. You're wounded."
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Company commander goes to the aid station. His XO takes over. They launch this night attack. They take the objective, and they only lose.
That was it. That was it. Well, you know what they say, man. A little blue on blue never killed anybody. Literally. Oh my god. That reminds me of something.
20 men. So night combat was outrageously effective for Terry and his men, but shortly after that first night combat, the war ends up coming to an end. Terry would later go on to write, and I quote, "I wish the war hadn't stopped when it did. It's a damn shame. I was just beginning to get good ideas about commanding infantry battalions. I wish I could go back to the front and try them out." Regardless, the armistice is signed, World War I is over. Terry ends up staying over in Europe until 1920 as part of the occupation army, and somewhere along the lines, he ends up, playing polo against the British, and then he ends up, being friends with some of the British officers, and he has this one officer that he ends up being pretty good drinking buddies with. And this particular officer's name was Edward VIII, as in like the Prince of Wales and future King Edward VIII, and Terry had no fucking idea until after the fact. So just to recap on Terrible Terry in World War I, literally scams his way into becoming an infantry officer, successfully leads an entire battalion into combat, earns a Silver Star, earns a Purple Heart, gets shot in the face that fixes his stutter, and then becomes drinking buddies with the fucking King of England.
Dude, I cannot believe you left out the fact that he popped a fellow officer in the ass with his service pistol. How do you not mention that? I feel like that should have gone first, to be honest. Like, that's just so good. Oh my god, dude. That's like some mobster shit. Really, like someone comes up and says, yo, I went out of the business. I got a family now, and I can't do this anymore. And the mafia boss looks at him. He's like, you want out? You're out. Like, that's just fucking... That's so cutthroat savage that it's like, dude, and he gets away with it. No one says anything. Like, and even Fat Electrician just like smoothed on by it. Like it wasn't even... That's absurd.
Harry's the main character. I don't know what to tell you.
Yes. This one's great.
So Terry returns to the United States.
Hold on, what did this say?
Character. I don't know what to tell you.
I want to be a cowboy.
So Terry returns to the United States, loses his temporary rank of major, gets busted back down to captain. He didn't do anything wrong. This was just standard practice. He only had the rank of major because it was like a time of war and that's what had to happen. Yeah. So Terry gets back home, gets settled in, and then in 1922, he gets called into his boss's office, and his boss, this colonel, explains to him that there's this famous rodeo promoter named Tex Austin and the Cattle Association, and they want to put on a competition between an actual cowboy and a cavalryman because there's been this huge rival between the two at who's a better horseman for like 100 years. They want it to be a long distance 300-mile race where each rider is only allowed to use one horse. So Terry asks the colonel who's going to compete for the army, and the colonel says, you are, and you're gonna win. And he's gonna be competing against his legendary cowboy known as Key Dune. He was a former wagon boss in the Old West. He's just a complete legend, and everybody is expecting whoever the army puts up to get absolutely smoked by this guy. And that's why it's a cattle congress and a rodeo promoter putting the whole thing on. They want to show that cowboys are better than the United States military. Unfortunately, they don't know that the US Army has Terry Allen, and he's the main character. So the media and the newspapers hype this up. The entire world is watching. The very first day, Terry clears over 50 miles and the cowboy barely hits 30. Terry's getting telegrams and updates on the race of where he's at, where the cowboy's at, how many miles are left to go every single night. And Terry is so far ahead the entire time that by the third day, he decides that he has time to stop at a diner and have breakfast. The waiter, striking up casual conversation, asks Terry if he's heard about this crazy race going on between the legendary cowboy Key Dune and
he's sitting there stuffing his face. He's like, oh yeah, I'm on it right now. Oh, just let me finish these eggs and bacon. I'll get back out there. Like, good God.
some army guy. And he goes like, I'm sure the army guy is really good, but he doesn't stand a chance against a real cowboy.
That's
to which
hilarious.
Terry informs him, well, first off, my name's Terry Allen. I'm the army guy. And last I checked, I'm pretty far ahead of him.
Yeah.
The restaurant ends up paying for Terry's breakfast for him. And then later that day,
Good.
Terry receives a telegram that Key Dune ran into trouble and he couldn't get feed for his horse one night. Now, on one hand, that's good because Terry's definitely going to win now because this guy's horse might actually die without getting the proper care it needs. But on the other hand, not exactly how Terry wants to win. So Terry sends a telegram back saying that they need to send an army car with feed and water and everything his horse needs to Key Dune, and that's exactly what they do. They keep Key Dune in the race just so Terry can beat him fair and square. I think this is a double win. It's actually genius on Terry's part because on one side, he gets to look like a class act.
Yes.
On the other side, he's preemptively shutting up all the typewriter warriors that are going to be like, ugh, He actually only won because that guy didn't get feed for
Yeah.
his horse. It
Yeah.
was a fluke. A real cowboy's still better than Army cavalry. Buh. No, Terry's shutting all that shit out of the gate, and he's gonna beat this guy fair and square. And that's exactly what he does, because he ends up beating Key Dune by over 7 hours. For the rest of the interwar years between World War I and World War II, Terry is pretty much just training and really defining the doctrine for what a cavalry soldier is supposed to be doing on the battlefield. You have to realize at this point in time, warfare on horseback is outdated, but nobody really knows that yet, right? Like, they're gonna get replaced by tanks and trucks, but World War I, tanks were just introduced. They were very simple things. It was just a big metal box with guns on it where you could pretty much just drive straight. They didn't have radios inside of them. They couldn't coordinate attacks. So a lot of people didn't understand the real potential with mechanized warfare. So a lot of people were still under the impression that horse warfare was still going to be very prevalent in the future. During this time, Terry literally rewrote the cavalry field regulations while he was at Fort Riley. He then went on to write a literal book about it that got published in the 1930s called Reconnaissance by Horse Cavalry Regiments. While all that was going on, he served as the assistant commander in 3 separate divisions, where it was said that he, and I quote, succeeded in convincing all of his charges that they were the best outfit in the Army. Again, this speaks to Terry's unorthodox but truly exceptionary leadership skills.
Big red one. Oh!
Cold shot. Show me what you got.
The big red one. I reckon I know what that is. Well, kind of. It's a patch. I saw it multiple times throughout my service. Is it like a square with a triangle at the bottom and literally has a big fucking one on it? And I don't know if it's like facing downwards or upwards. I can't remember, but this is also a unit. Maybe it's like was it Fort Drum? It was somewhere up north. Big red one. That's out of an installation somewhere. I can't remember. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see.
1940, Terry is promoted to Brigadier General. 1941 rolls around, the attack on Pearl Harbor, America enters World War II. Terry's getting fitted up for war, and then in 1942, he is promoted to Major General and put in charge of the 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One. So Terry shows up to the 1st ID, assumes command, and then he meets his second in command, a man that is just like him. He is rough around the edges, he does not care about the dog and pony show that is the United States military at higher ranks, and he also cares much more about the men beneath him than the men above him, and that man's name was Theodore Roosevelt Jr., aka Teddy Roosevelt's son. So Terry and Teddy get to work getting the 1st ID ready for battle. The first thing they do is flip the entire script on its head. Terry actually becomes friends with all of the men beneath him. They don't even call him General or Sir. They literally just end up calling him Terry. Terry doesn't hound him about having a prim and proper uniform all the time. The only thing Terry hounds him on is that their weapon is absolutely spotless and that they're good at their job. Unlike a lot of other high-ranking officers, Terry doesn't
That's pretty much all I required to. That's it.
Micromanage all of the officers and NCOs beneath him. Terry realizes that he has a very zoomed out bird's eye view of everything that's going on, and the men on the ground that are actually seeing individual problems up close have a much better idea of what's going on and how that problem needs to be solved. Terry focuses on actually picking the right men for the job, telling them what he wants done, and then letting them figure out how to do it. By November of 1942, Terry, Teddy, and the 1st Infantry Division are going to partake in Operation Torch, the Allied invasion in North Africa, particularly Morocco and Algeria, and the 1st Infantry Division is tasked with taking over a major city with an airfield known as Oran. November 8th, 1942 at midnight, the 1st Infantry Division makes its amphibious landing into Algeria, and everything goes absolutely textbook. They see a little bit of resistance, but not much. They overcome it almost immediately. Oran's about 25 miles from the beachhead, and they have to clear all of that distance on foot, rucking and carrying all their gear with them. During that time, they experience very minimal resistance until they come across a town called St. Cloud, where all of the forces had kind of regrouped and fell back to this town in fortified fighting positions and were waiting for the Allied forces to come in and fight them. At this point, Terry's got to consider what he actually wants to do here, because he could send in all of his men, clear out the entire town, kill all the enemies, and probably be considered a war hero for it. But he's going to be putting his men in harm's way, and there's nothing of strategic value inside of St. Cloud. His objective is to take over the city of Oran, and he doesn't need St. Cloud to do it. it, and he's not going to put his men in harm's way for no reason. The next thing he could do is bombard it with artillery, but there's a bunch of civilians that live in that town too, so that option is also out. So Terry takes one of his battalions, fortifies it, and has them surround the town so the enemy can't get out, and then launch a counterattack later, and continues to move the 1st Infantry Division towards the objective. Okay, this is brilliant. This is literally what the Marines did in the Pacific Theater with the island hopping strategy, except Terry is doing it in North Africa with entire towns. Now remember, this is 25 miles they have to walk to Oran, carrying all their shit after landing on a wet beach, probably being soaked. Okay, this is gonna be...
That's one hellacious ruck march right there, man. Oof. I feel bad. I feel bad for all the complaining I did during mine. Good God, 25 miles, all that shit. You just stepped on a beach. And they're probably carrying way more shit than we carried. I feel. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe we also carried the same amount of shit when we got in country. However, we landed via helicopter and we landed right where we needed to be. These fuckers got to go so far, man. That's oof. I feel for them.
Be a jaunt and a half. It's going to be exhausting and it's going to take time. The first ID moves all through the night, all through the day of November 9th, and Terry is pushing his men to the point of exhaustion. On the morning of the 10th, Terry is up on the front line with his men after everybody's been walking for a day and a half, and as he's patrolling the front line, seeing how everybody's doing, he comes across this utterly exhausted rifle company that's taking shelter inside of a ditch next to a road because there's some stray artillery fire coming in. So Terry walks through the ditch, gets on the other side, and he's standing, and he can see the city of Oran off in the distance, and he's looking around, he's looking at the faces of his men. He knows they're exhausted. The men are looking back at him like, okay, here it comes. We're about to get our ass chewed because we're taking a break. Fuck. So Terry looks back at the city of Oran, and then he looks back at the men, and he says, and I quote, "There's a lot of good-looking girls in that city ready to welcome the liberating Americans."
Where did Hackett go?
And with that, his men got up, reinvigorated, and continued towards the objective. Again, Terry showing his expert leadership, being able to get the absolute most out of his men when shit sucks. One of the men that served under Terry later described his leadership style as something along the lines of, he always wanted to achieve the objective, not because he was worried that he would get in trouble or get chewed out by Terry, but because he...
That's so hilarious now that I think about it. Terry, there's enemy fire coming from that direction. Yes, there is. You're correct. There's also bitches over there. So that's so good. Okay, let me go back.
Terry showing his expert leadership, being able to get the absolute most out of his men when shit sucks. One of the men that served under Terry later described his leadership style as something along the lines of, he always wanted to achieve the objective, not because he was worried that he would get in trouble or get chewed out by Terry, but because he genuinely did not want to let Terry down, because he respected him that much. So they cleared 25 miles, they take over the city of Oran, they achieve the objective, and as a reward, command decides that Terry Allen is supposed to hunker down in the city of Oran and piecemeal out his 1st Infantry Division to support other elements.
But you can't do this to me.
At this point, Terry's pissed. He thinks he has the best infantry division in the army, and he doesn't think that he should be piecemealing out his men to play support roles for everybody else. He thinks that he should be up on the front lines, charging towards the enemy. And this goes on for months. The entire time, Terry is raising hell with his chain of command, and his chain of command just simply isn't hearing it. And after 3 months go by, Terry's finally had enough. He goes over all of his boss's heads and goes straight into General Eisenhower's office, looks him in the eyes and says, and I quote, "Is this a private war or can anybody get in?" General Eisenhower, impressed by Terry, issues the command to reassemble the 1st Infantry Division.
Do you want to know why I look so afraid? Because, bro, you never do that. Oh my God. Out of all the dumb shit you can do in the military, Jesus. I'd rather get a DUI before I go over the head of my 1st sergeant and or my commander. And I go to someone higher? Gee, oh no. That's awful. You might be able to get away with that shit when you're 8 years old. When you ask your mom for something, she says no, and then you go to your dad. But in the military? But he's, like Fat Electrician said, he's the main character. Nothing's gonna come of this. If nothing came of him shooting another officer in the ass, nothing's gonna come of this either.
Division and get them into combat, infuriating all of the officers in between because Terry just went over their head to the big boss. So now Terry's got his entire division back, all of his men are under his command, and what he decides to do is he wants to start getting them trained and ready to go into combat. He gives them extensive night fight training and gets them ready for combat with like the couple of weeks that they have. Early March, Terry gets an order that him and the 1st Infantry Division are supposed to go take over a city in Tunisia known as Gafsa, about 45 miles away from Oran. Terry needs to have the entire division moved into place on March 16th, just north of the city, and then on the morning of March 17th at first light, they are going to attack and take over the entire city. So Terry does just that. They arrive on the 16th, exactly where they're supposed to be, and that night, Terry says, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to fight at night. Terry essentially defies orders of fighting at first light when the enemy can see and launches a surprise attack that night. The 1st ID takes over the entire city with minimal casualties. The first thing the next morning, Terry's boss, a guy by the name of General Patton, shows up because he wants to see the assault take place. Right as the sun's coming up, General Patton storms into Terry's headquarters asking what the hell's going on? Why don't I see any movement? Why aren't you attacking? Terry,
We already did, sir.
nonchalantly informs General Patton, battle's over, I already have all the objectives.
Let me hear you say it. Let me hear you say, good job. Good job.
Well, now Patton's not pissed off that the objective wasn't met. Now he's pissed off that it wasn't met exactly how he wanted it to be met. And he demands an explanation from Terry.
Yeah.
At this point, Terry can't.
Well, I thought about your plan, and it seemed solid. But then I thought about my plan, and it seemed better. So, naturally, I feel like you would have made the same decision, sir. This guy's great, man.
Casually asks General Patton, do you know who Newt Rockney is? At which point, Patton responds, yeah, what the hell does a Swedish football player have to do with war? If you don't know, Newt Rockney was the guy that popularized forward passing in American football, so Terry explains to him, the night attack is essentially the forward pass in the infantry. Telling Patton, and I quote, why would I beat my brains out for 1.5 yards when I could just pass the ball for 40 yards? At which point, General Patton says, again, and I quote, oh, and then he fucking leaves. From here, Terry and the 1st ID are ordered to help the Allied forces take over the next city, El Gater. Again, they launch a surprise attack, taking over all the preliminary objectives, and from here...
General Patton left, and he was like, well, clearly that man definitely knows what the fuck he's talking about. I don't know why everybody's so mad. I feel like this was a wasted trip. So good.
They experience heavy German resistance, a ton of counterattacks. They're getting strafed by the Luftwaffe. They're getting hit by artillery. It is an absolute shit show. After a couple of days of fighting, Erwin Rommel sends in a bunch of heavy tanks to punch through the American 1st Infantry Division's lines, and they are making a beeline straight towards Terry's headquarters, at which point Terry is ordered to fall back, to which he responds to his chain of command, I will like hell fall back, and I will shoot the first bastard that does. And the 1st Infantry goes on to repel the attack. That very same day, Allied intelligence cracks the German battle code and they intercept a radio transmission saying that the attack is going to resume at 1600. A little bit later, they intercept another transmission that says the attack has been postponed until 1645. Now, to most people, this just seems like good information to have. Right now, we can, be ready and defend ourselves when this attack comes. But to good old terrible Terry, he sees a unique opportunity to fuck with the enemy, and that's exactly what he's gonna do. So Terry waits until 1650.
I was kind of getting annoyed that shit kept getting pushed back, but...
15 minutes after the initial attack was supposed to take place, and then he orders his communications unit to send a transmission on the German radio frequency that says, and I quote, what the hell are you guys waiting for? We've been ready since 4 p.m. Signed, the 1st Infantry Division.
Have a nice day, and thank you.
Shoot.
Okay, I don't think you guys understand how beautiful this really was, okay? It was like an onion of go fuck yourself. There's so many different layers to it. I mean, for one, it's just funny. Two, it demoralizes the enemy because now the enemy knows that we've intercepted their communications, we've broken their battle code.
It's like you get into a fight with someone and you throw 4 of your best haymakers and he just stares at you like, has the fight started yet? Or was that it? That's why.
code, we know they're coming and we're not scared. And 3, the story of this happening spreads through the front lines like absolute wildfire and increases morale like crazy. I mean, could you imagine being a frontline soldier? You've just fended off the infamous German blitzkrieg by Erwin Rommel, and then your good old buddy, your boss, Terry, essentially pulls his junk out, lays it on the table, and asks Erwin Rommel if he wants seconds because he knows that his boys are gonna fuck him up if he does. You'd be absolutely pumped going into that battle, and that's exactly what happened because they stuffed him in the pocket again. At which point, none other than General Patton comes strutting into Terry's headquarters again with a smile on his face and says, and I quote, "Terry, when are you gonna learn to take this damn war seriously?" The battle continues until April 6th, until they've achieved all of their objectives. After this, the first ID is tasked with basically
Stop fucking trolling, Terry.
going around Tunisia and cleaning up all the remnants. They're going around following Terry's command. Terry's launching night attack, day attack, night attack, staggering back and forth, keeping the enemy guessing. It's absolute chaos, and the first ID just mops the floor with the enemy. The entire
And then the enemy's like, can someone do something about fucking Terry?
time, Terry and Teddy Roosevelt Jr. are on the front lines telling their men, like, okay, once we clean up Tunisia, we're gonna go back to Oran for some R&R. We're gonna have a bunch of fun. We're gonna beat up every MP in town while we do it. Now, while all this is going on, General Terry is starting to get a lot of publicity in Time magazine and the newspapers back home, and Patton is all over PR, right? That dude thrives on PR, and he's starting to kind of like get a little bit jealous that Terry's starting to attract some of the spotlight. Time magazine actually called Terry the best commander of an infantry division in the United States Army. And the next version of Time that comes out, General Patton gives an interview where he describes the combatants of El Guitar, aka the 1st Infantry Division, as a bunch of freshmen. Terry, noticeably fucking furious because he's insulting his precious 1st Infantry Division, calls him out on it. Him and Patton get into a back and forth. Patton calls him tired, and they get in this big pissing match. At one point, Patton actually ends up showing up to Terry's headquarters in person while Terry and the 1st ID are clearing out the rest of Tunisia, and walks in, they're talking, and Terry kind of asks, looking around the HQ, there's, you know, some foxholes dug, and he asks Terry, which one's yours? And Terry points to his foxhole, and Patton walks over and takes a piss in it. At which point, Terry's bodyguards click the safeties off their Tommy guns, and Patton realizes, oh fuck, I might have took this too far. And Patton quickly scurries out of Terry's HQ and fucks off. So Terry is absolutely not getting along with his contemporaries and the men above him in the chain of command. But at the end of the day, he really doesn't care what the people above him think about him. He wants to get the job done and take care of the men below him, and that's exactly what he's doing.
That reminds me of that one scene, the last good scene from one of the Fast and Furious movies that I saw, where The Rock's character, he's like, you're under arrest and all this stuff. And then Dom's like, you must have forgot where you are, bro. You're in Brazil. And then like everyone pulls out their guns. And then one of the Rock's buddies, he's like, yeah, I think we should just leave right now before we get fucked on, because we weren't prepared for that's hilarious.
He's not going to let some big name talk down to his men just so they can get more press. But it's not just Patton. Omar Bradley also does not really like Terry Allen, because Omar Bradley shows up to see how the 1st ID's doing, and what he notices is, unlike all the other infantry divisions that are, you know, eating cold food out of a can, every time he shows up to the 1st ID front lines, their chow halls are full of fresh beef because apparently they fucking found some on the battlefield. And this was apparently a big deal because they were all ordered to not eat the local livestock for fear of getting people sick, but also like just fucking cook the meat. People been doing this for tens of thousands of years. It's worked fine the entire time. General Terry's gonna bend the rules to get his guys some warm food and take care of them because that's just the type of guy he is. But Omar Bradley interprets this as him being a poor disciplinarian and being lax on all the policies. So Omar Bradley doesn't really like him either. Regardless, the 1st ID finishes clearing out the rest of Tunisia, and then they go back to Oran for some much needed R&R.
The incident.
So the 1st ID shows up in Oran, and this is where shit kind of hits the fan, because the 1st ID took this place over a couple of months ago, and since then the 2nd wave of American forces has kind of went in, taken it over, and essentially turned it into a major military installation, right? You've got all your administrative people, you've got your supply people, they're all running around in their Class Bs. These guys have never seen combat, they've never seen the front line, and when the 1st ID shows up, they're informed that combat soldiers are not allowed to go into the bars and officer clubs inside of the cities.
Well, Pardon me, young man. Excuse the shit out of my goddamn French.
This, rightfully so, does not sit well with the 1st Infantry Division. Like,
doesn't.
motherfucker, I'm the one that took this city over and fought the Germans. You
much.
showed up after the fact, and now you're going to tell me I can't go into the
You should be saying fucking thank you.
bar? Absolutely not. You can go fuck yourself. So there's a bunch of fights. There's a bunch of partying. On one occasion, General Allen is sitting down at a restaurant having lunch when he sees one of his soldiers with the big red 1 patch on his arm getting into a fist fight with a couple of different soldiers in their Class Bs, at which point Terry stops lunch, goes over, breaks up the fight, tells his sergeant, like, hey, sergeant, knock this shit off, yada, 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 goes back to eating lunch. A couple minutes later, fight breaks out again, same exact sergeant. Terry gets up, now he's pissed. Like, Terry's a cool guy, doesn't want to chew you out, but if he gives you a direct order, you better fucking listen. So Terry grabs his sergeant and he's like, Sergeant, I thought I told you to not fight. And the sergeant looks at Terry and goes, General, you didn't hear what they said about the 1st Infantry Division. They said we couldn't fight our way out of a wet paper bag. At which point Terry looks this NCO in the eyes and goes, all right, get back in there. And then proceeded to go back and eat his lunch while he watched this NCO beat up a couple of paper pushers. So it's definitely a shit show going on here, but by the time all this information reaches Eisenhower, all he sees is the word riot written on a piece of paper. He calls Omar Bradley into his office, chews Omar Bradley's ass. Omar Bradley basically blames all of it on Terry Allen, saying that he's a poor disciplinarian and that he's not doing a good job manning his men. So Omar Bradley basically hatches a plan that he's going to try to get Terry Allen relieved of command. The problem is they're about to go.
I think the problem with here is that while Terry's style of leadership is amazing for combat, you could see where it might be a problem in the civilian sector, right? No matter how great of a leader he is, and no matter how much his soldiers admire him and respect him, sometimes these things are bound to happen in the civilian sector when you operate with the same style of discipline that you do when you're in combat. Because when I was deployed, yeah, everything was a little bit more relaxed, just a little bit, right? But when we got back stateside, everything went right back to strict, right? So it's just depends. But this guy wasn't gonna bend. He's like, look, this is how I lead. This is how I lead. If you don't like it, man, go fuck yourself, really. Pretty much.
Go invade Sicily, and despite the fact that Terry Allen and Patton don't really like each other, Patton finds out that they're going to not let the 1st Infantry Division partake in the amphibious landings at Gela, at which point Patton says, no, I need those 1st Infantry sons of bitches, I won't go without them. So General Patton essentially ends up keeping Terry in the fight, not because he likes him, but because he recognizes that he needs him, because Terry Allen is that fucking good. Yeah. So July 10th, 1943, Operation Husky kicks off, the amphibious landing in Sicily, and the 1st Infantry Division is landing at Gela, and they need to take it over. It is heavily fortified, and it is a tough fight the entire time, but Terry gets his men, and they establish this beachhead, and they start moving forward. On the second day of fighting, Terry's back at his headquarters, and Teddy is out on the front line, and where Teddy's at gets overrun by Hermann Göring's tanks. They attack with 60 German tanks. At this point, Terry doesn't have any tanks to send to go fight him, and he doesn't have enough anti-tank in his infantry to be able to do anything. So Terry, thinking fast, orders Teddy to have the men bed down, let the tanks roll right over the top of their fortified positions, and then once the tanks are past them, fight off all the infantry that's going to be coming in behind them, and that's exactly what they do. But now Terry still has to figure out what to do with the 60.
Gotta do it quickly though, because those tanks will eventually turn around, I assume.
60 German tanks making a beeline straight towards him. So Terry sends the order out to his forward observers to get ready to call in for naval gunfire, and then he orders his artillery to lower the guns and, I quote, slug it out when the tanks come. And that's exactly what they do. Teddy and his infantry on the front line fend off all the German infantry, and Terry's artillery and naval gunfire takes out all the German tanks. Damn. By the end of that day's battle, Terry has lost a ton of men. His line is fractured.
Bro, that's a crazy battle. A firefight on top of just like naval artillery pounding the ground right next to you, or just anywhere in your vicinity. That shit is just massive amounts of just like shock and blast. It's wild.
Still got guys all over the place trying to hold on desperately to key terrain features. He's hurting bad, and he still can't get tanks up there. At this point, Terry realizes he needs to pull a Sun Tzu. He needs to appear strong when he's at his weakest, and he issues a single order in all caps. The division attacks at midnight. And that's exactly what happens. At midnight, they open up with naval gunfire and artillery. The 1st ID launches their night attack, catching the Germans completely off guard. And once the smoke settles, they realize that the Germans were gearing up to launch a major offensive the very next day. But the 1st ID and Terry Allen beat them to it, wiping them out and capturing all the objectives by sunrise. Damn. Terry Allen and the 1st ID have saved the day. However, we can't say that because we don't like Terry Allen because he takes care of his troops. So rather than crediting Terry Allen, Omar Bradley shifts the credit and gives it to Patton because it's technically Terry Allen's boss, saying, and I quote, "General Patton's insistence on having the division for the assault may have saved the 2nd Corps from disaster."
This is a load of barnacles.
Yeah.
After that, the 1st ID is ordered to go take over an airfield. They do that almost immediately. And from there, there's another super hard fight that they're going to need the 1st ID for at a town called Trenoa, which is part of the Edna defense line. And it absolutely
Won't give them credit, but you sure do need them a lot.
has to be captured. The problem is it's a mountainous town in Sicily that's described as being so hilly that it would tax a mountain goat, and there's a bunch of Germans in there that are heavily fortified and ready to fight. So Terry and the 1st ID show up, and this is a hard fight. But Terry's in command. He's shifting soldiers around, forcing the Germans to shift their soldiers around, causing the Germans to expose a weak point, at which point Terry would attack. He just out-finesses the German command at every possible turn, and the 1st ID takes over the town in 6 days. And then holds it while the Germans desperately launched 24 counteroffensive towards him, and he stuffed every single one of them.
Good
now,
Lord.
in the midst of the battle, as it became apparent that Terry Allen might actually pull this shit off, 2 other generals, General Wyman and General Huber, showed up as observers. They then proceed to sit back, watch Terry Allen and the 1st ID out-finesse the Germans at every conceivable turn, take over the entire town in 6 days, breaking the Edna defensive line, and then, once the battle was over, they informed Terry Allen and Teddy Roosevelt Jr. that they are both being relieved of command under the orders of General Eisenhower and General Omar Bradley. And their reasoning for it was essentially what it was back in Oren when they planned the entire thing, saying that Terry Allen was a poor disciplinarian, and because of that, the 1st Infantry Division had become too unruly. So the
He just, oh my God, I can't. I fucking can't with these people. I can't with these people. You let this motherfucker take you to the playoffs, only for you to drop him from the roster right before the, like, after he wins it for you. You drop him the follow-up, man, saying he had a bad attitude. He's the whole reason that y'all succeeded on multiple occasions. The hell are we talking?
Allen was a poor disciplinarian, and because of that, the 1st Infantry Division had become too unruly. So the entire 1st Infantry Division is absolutely furious. They absolutely love their fighting General Terry Allen. Terry Allen is absolutely furious because, well, his career is essentially over and he is being shipped back to the United States. Ironically, just 2 days after he is officially relieved of command of the 1st Infantry Division, he ends up on the cover of Time magazine, praising him as the best fighting general in the United States Army.
Ironic.
And now he's been relieved of command and is getting sent back to the United States. And you have to understand,
All because a couple of his fellow officers didn't like his leadership style. Not everyone has to have the same leadership style, and it's his leadership style that got his men to perform how they did, man. I feel like he just gave them. Terry is the kind of leader that made everyone better around him, right? He was so good at what he did, and he could do it so well that even your most mediocre soldier would rise up to the occasion to perform for this man because they all respected him and revered him. That's the only kind of leadership style you really fucking need. You don't need all this stuffy shit, bro. Really, like micromanaging and blah blah blah. You didn't shave. Your uniform's dirty. Oh, where's your fucking PT belt? Like, bro, calm the fuck down. Really, it's at the end of the day, it's combat, and some of these officers act like not only are we going to combat, but we're also having a fucking beauty contest or something. Like, and we're having to fucking play 2 parts. Like, the part of a humanitarian and the part of a soldier. We always have to look good for some. Fuck that. It's war. It looks how it looks. But Leave it up to high rank, man, to always try to. It's. I will always prefer, coming from a lower enlisted that served in the military, I will always prefer a leader like Terry as opposed to any other fucking leader, period. Any other leader, man. That's it. He's the perfect kind. But he doesn't represent, I guess, the status quo of what it is to be an officer and like little cool kids club that they have, little fucking weirdos. They call each other by the first names and shit.
And in World War II, when you were relieved of command and sent back to the United States, like, that was it. You were done. You were going to be in charge of, like, a training facility or some bullshit. You were never going to see combat or major warfare ever again. This is the end of Terry Allen's career.
The Timberwolves.
So Terry makes it back to the United States, doesn't really have orders. He's on rest and recuperation. And after 7 weeks, he receives a letter from General Eisenhower that says, and I quote, "I'm certain that after you've had your well-deserved rest from the battlefield, your experience and courage will command your assignment to equally, if not more important duty."
I'm back, baby!
Apparently, while Omar Bradley and Patton don't like Allen, Eisenhower still does, and he's the top dog. Because of this, both Terry and Roosevelt are given a second shot at command.
Nice.
Teddy Roosevelt Jr. is famously sent back overseas, where he partakes in the first wave landing of Utah Beach during D-Day, and Terry Allen is sent to Oregon, where he assumes command of the 104th Infantry Division, aka the Timberwolves. Terry assumes command in October of
Suck it, nerds.
1943, and for almost a year,
I win.
he trains this unit to get ready for combat. They train all over the country. They train in Oregon. They train in California. They train at Camp Hyder for desert combat. They are ready for absolutely anything. And the entire time, Terry Allen dedicates 35 hours a week to night combat. And the Timberwolves.
Yo, Terry loves him some fucking night operations. I'll tell you that. And let me tell you this. That was my least favorite type of operation. Night operations. I did it several times. Not a fan. Give me daytime. Give me daylight. The fucking... At first, wearing NVGs is cool for like an hour. After that, man... Ugh.
Become the first ever U.S. Army unit to specialize in nighttime operations. September 1944, Terry Allen and the Timberwolves make their way into northern France, fighting alongside British and Canadian units, most likely an effort to keep Terry Allen away from all the other United States generals. Once Terry gets in France, his first order of business is to go to
David, what's good, man?
the graveside of one of his best friends, Teddy Roosevelt Jr., the only general to land in the first wave of D-Day, who would pass away just 6 days later from a heart attack and be posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. And after that, Terry Allen is pissed and goes on an absolute tear through the enemy. Shortly after the British and the Canadians witnessed the Timberwolves in combat operations, Canadian General G.G. Simmons says, and I quote, "Once the Timberwolves got their teeth into the Germans, they showed great dash. The British and Canadian troops on their flanks expressed great admiration for their courage and enthusiasm. When they again meet the Germans, all hell cannot stop the Timberwolves." And he was absolutely correct, because Terry Allen and the Timberwolves fight through northern France. They fight through the Netherlands. They push the Germans back past the Meuse River. They help capture Antwerp. They capture the major industrial city of Stolberg. They run down the German army, liberating towns left and right. During the Battle of the Bulge, the last-ditch German Hail Mary of an offensive, they not only hold their positions, but they contain the Germans on the northern flank. Due to their ability to operate at night, the British and the Canadians simply start calling the Timberwolves the Night Fighters. They are so impressed by Terry Allen and the Timberwolves that Sir Alexander Harold of the British Army calls Terry Allen the best division commander he's seen in 2 world wars. Bear in mind, this is at a time where British and American officers had a rivalry and didn't think very highly of each other at all. From there, the Timberwolves come up on the historic German city of
But this guy right here, this guy's the shit. Like...
Halle. It's this beautiful town that's been there forever, and it is being occupied by German soldiers under the command of Felix von Luckner, the famed Sea Raider from World War I. Terry Allen personally brokers their surrender by basically coming to the negotiating table and telling Luckner, hey, look, this is a really pretty historic city. If you don't surrender now, I'm going to level the whole fucking thing. So he reluctantly agrees to surrender to Terry Allen. The Timberwolves then continue to push further inland until they actually run into the Soviet Red Army, at which point Terry Allen takes the patch off of his arm and declares a...
I love what he said here. That's actually so savage.
their surrender by basically coming to the negotiating table and telling Luckner, hey, look, this is a really pretty historic city. If you don't surrender now, I'm going to level the whole fucking thing. So
think about that. This is a really nice house you have here. Look at these paintings, all of the pretty vases and the chandelier. It would be a damn shame if I just brought a wrecking ball through this bitch and just fucked your shit up, wouldn't it? That'd be a shame, wouldn't it? Good God. That's great.
he reluctantly agrees to surrender to Terry Allen. The Timberwolves then continue to push further inland until they actually run into the Soviet Red Army, at which point Terry Allen takes the patch off of his arm and declares the Soviet commander an honorary Timberwolf, and the Soviet officer does the same to Terry Allen. And according to legend, they spent that night having a drinking competition, and Terry Allen won. From there, the Timberwolves moved to help seal the Ruhr pocket, cutting off 300,000 German soldiers and ultimately forcing them to surrender before they moved on to liberate a concentration camp. Shortly after that, the Germans would surrender, the Timberwolves was deactivated in July of 1945, and Terry Allen would finally retire in 1946 after achieving his redemption of not only getting fired from his initial job, but taking a year to train another unit, fighting all the way across the European theater, and he still beat Patton into Germany by...
His second run was more impressive than his first after he got relieved. The run he made after he got relieved was more impressive than the initial run before he got fired.
4 months. After a lifetime of military service,
I feel anyway,
Terry retired, moved to his wife's hometown in El Paso, Texas, where he became an insurance salesman and was very active in the veterans community, helping out any and every way that he possibly could. Unfortunately, at the age of 79, Terry would make one final sacrifice for his country. His 38-year-old son, Terry Allen Jr., was killed in combat in Vietnam, and Terry would pass away 2 years later at the age of 81. He is currently buried at Fort Bliss National Cemetery with his wife and his son. And that is the story of Terry.
81 is not a bad age to go. That's a full life to me anyway.
De La Mesa Allen, aka Terrible Terry, the general that cared more about his subordinates than the opinions of his contemporaries. The man who legendary war correspondent Ermi Pyle described as the greatest leader of men and the greatest tactical general in the United States Army. And in my opinion, the most gangster general of World War II. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang, out.
That's my kind of leader. It really is. I would give it anything to have a leader like that. It's just, you're already in the military. It's already a difficult job. You're already at war. You're in combat. That also fucking sucks. Wouldn't it be great if you didn't add any more extra bullshit into everything that you're already currently dealing with? Huh? Wouldn't it be great? You didn't really have to worry about a haircut, if you didn't really have to worry about how your uniform looked, or didn't really have to worry about, I don't know, the dog and pony, certain customs and courtesies that you have to do back home. You know, we don't do that shit here, because that's not the objective. The objective is to not look good. The objective is to win this war. And the objective is also to not even look professional. We are professionals, but you either fight a war or you look professional. You can't do both, right? So it's my kind of leader. No micromanaging. Just do what you're supposed to do. Be at the right place, right time, right uniform. We're good, man. That's it. Do what you got to do. I'll trust you if you trust me, right? Not going to micromanage you. Not going to do any of that stuff. And your soldiers are way more receptive to that type of leadership than they are to the other kind, which the other kind's not all the way bad, and it shows good results too, but this is just better. And wouldn't it be great if most NCOs and officers were like this? For us, it would be. But for the ones that think that being an officer is like, I don't know, being like of royalty, where you have to, I don't know, man. Like you sit in a fucking ivory tower or something. Really? No. You're a soldier, just like everybody else, man. Act like you're not better than anybody. That's how a lot of officers act these days. And no one likes that. You know, I did 2 tours, and I can count on one hand how many times I even saw my my LT, my first deployment. One hand, I can count how many times. No, my second deployment, I can count how many times I saw my LT. My first deployment, I saw my LT a lot. But my second deployment, I can count on one hand how many times I saw that dude. On my second deployment, I can count on one hand how many times my commander actually went on a mission with us. My first deployment, I can count on 0 hands how many times my commander went on a mission with us. Our LT went on a couple. But yeah, first sergeant, same thing. They barely went on missions with us. Ever. Man, and I've told y'all this before, but one of the very few times that my first sergeant did go on a mission with us, it was because CNN was there. This motherfucker had no interest on doing foot patrols with us for 6 whole months, and then CNN shows up, and all of a sudden, he's getting geared up, he's putting on his helmet, he's putting on elbow knee pads, like getting ready to go like, hey, be at the safety brief at fucking 1100, and it's just like, where did you come from? You haven't done shit this whole deployment, and now you act like you've been here the whole time? Nah, man, not. But because there's cameras? No, man, no. And that's the type of leadership I dealt with. This is the type of leadership I wanted. But we'll check out that Mr. Ballin video. Yeah, dude, that was great. Is this a private war or can anyone join? Like, holy shit, man, you're cutting me down at the knees here. This man was just an E4 that stole some stars from clothing sales, put them on, and was so good that no one questioned him. A lot of E4 behavior. He displayed a lot of E4 behavior. But when you're good at your job, bro, you're good at your job, and can't nobody fucking tell you. Can't nobody tell you. You have to put up with it because you can't sacrifice that. You just can't. Like, example, before the steroid shit, everybody fucking hated Barry Bonds. Like, all the players and shit, and even the coaches, they were like, man, that guy's a dick. That guy's such a fucking douchebag. I fucking hate that guy. But guess what? Motherfucker hit a lot of home runs. So, the organization put up with him. Up until the steroid shit happened, and they were like, yeah, you're actually gone now. But you can be a dick, you can be a douchebag, you can be unlikable, but if you're good at what you do, no one can take that away from you. Is it good to be liked? Yeah, sure. But he was liked by the right people, by the people he wanted to be liked by. He didn't care to be liked by people that didn't matter. It was his troops on the front line, not those other officers. Why is he trying to impress other officers? Why does he even give a shit? They're not there. They're not actually in the shit with him, right? So, love this dude. Okay. Oh. The female dating strategy. Whatever that is. Should we watch that? Oh, that's like 30 minutes. No way. Really? You know, tell your buddy, Sneaky Clean, that he should be happy about the fact that I don't remember his name. Because you never want to be that person to give up a record-breaking something, right? You don't want to be the batter that strikes out to give up a no-hitter. You don't want to be the batter that strikes out to give up a perfect game. You don't want to be the batter that hits into a double play in Game 7 of the World Series. And you definitely do not want to give up a record-breaking home run as a pitcher. Lucky for him, I don't remember his name. Oh, that's unfortunate. He died from drugs a few years ago? Well, R.I.P. Well, when he was alive, he could have rested easy knowing that no one really remembered him for that. Which isn't really, like, an embarrassing thing to be remembered. You just gave up a home run. You're no different than any other pitcher in the history of baseball. But when it's that significant, and on top of that, if I were him, I would have been pissed for a couple of years, knowing that I gave up a record-breaking home run to a motherfucker that was cheating. Oh, bro, that shit would have fucking drove me insane. That shit would have pissed me off. Like, how many pitchers' careers Barry Bond ruined? How many pitchers' careers he fucking ruined because of his steroids? Pitches that were thrown that shouldn't have been home runs, but because he was on steroids, they were home runs. And now people are questioning the pitcher. Like, are you really... Are you supposed to be in this league, man? You're just giving up home runs. Well, technically, that one wasn't supposed to be one, but because this motherfucker is juiced more than the fucking Kool-Aid man, then yeah, it went over the fence. Dude, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. So there was probably some pitchers that either got sent back to the minors or lost their spot in the rotation, or maybe they got in their own head because they kept giving up home runs to this bastard. I don't know. You never know with these things, but... All right, let's do this Mr. Ballin video. Let me see what it's called. All right. Let me see what it is. The biggest shock in this story won't be the lightning. Oh, this is pretty brand new.
Being chased.
Yeah, we're not doing that. Stop it. Here we go.
Today, I'm going to tell you 2 classic spooky stories. But before we get into those stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload once a week.
These are 2 stories.
So if that's of interest to you, please sneak into the like button's house and dump out all their shampoo, and then refill the bottles with glue. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's stories. At 5:15 p.m. on June 28, 1980, a 38-year-old man named Robert Davidson drove his motorcycle down Interstate 74 in Acton, Indiana, which is a small community just outside of Indianapolis. On the back of the motorcycle, with her arms wrapped around his waist, was Robert's wife. Her name was Wanda. The couple was on their way to visit family, and they were hoping to get there as soon as possible, not because they wanted to visit, but because there was a big storm rolling in, and they were hoping to beat the rain. In fact, right now, right above them, the sky was turning a dark gray and looked very ominous. But as Robert nudged his engine to go a little bit faster, these big raindrops began pelting his arms, and he knew the skies were opening up and he would have to pull over so he and his wife could put on rain jackets. And so Robert pulled over to the side of the road, and as soon as he was starting,
rain jackets. You need to pull over and just simply not ride this bike. Riding a bike in the rain? Crazy?
Stopped. Wanda climbed off, and Robert was about to climb off as well and open up the little trunk in the back of the motorcycle to get the rain jackets. But before he did that, there was this sudden flash of light, and then Robert felt pain all throughout his body.
Damn.
His muscles went totally rigid, and then he crumpled off his bike onto the ground, and everything went black. Less than 5 minutes later, an ambulance arrived on the scene, and several first responders jumped out, including a woman named Kimberly Cobb. Now, Kimberly had been briefed up on this situation. A man and his wife had pulled over on the side of Interstate 74, and the man had been struck by lightning. And so as she ran up to the couple, she could see Robert was on the ground. He was not moving. His skin was waxy and gray, and his wife was sort of in shock, and she was standing next to him, just kind of sobbing uncontrollably. And Kimberly, she jumped into action. She jumped down next to Robert, and she felt for a pulse, but he didn't have one. At this point, Kimberly knew she maybe had a couple of minutes here to basically revive Robert, or he was doomed. And so Kimberly, she worked immediately on stabilizing Robert's spine, while one of her team members, one of the other first responders, jumped in and began doing CPR. And then a third first responder hopped on the ambulance radio and called in an emergency medical helicopter to get here and fly Robert to a hospital as soon as possible. They quickly got a response from the helicopter crew saying they were en route, but before the crew or any of the first responders—
Bro, just imagine the helicopter's on the way to pick this guy up and the helicopter gets struck by lightning. I'm sorry, my brain went there.
Responders could communicate any further over the radio. Suddenly, out of nowhere, their ambulance just completely shut down, like completely shut off. The lights, the sirens, the engine, everything went completely silent.
Hold on.
But before the crew or any of the first responders could communicate any further over the radio, suddenly, out of nowhere, their ambulance just completely shut down, like completely shut off. The lights, the sirens, the engine, everything went completely silent. And this was a huge problem because some of the medical equipment that they needed to keep Robert alive until the helicopter got here required the ambulance to be on to use it. And so with the ambulance—
I don't think that's a coincidence with the fact that this guy got struck by lightning. I think there's something happening meteorologically that caused some kind of electromagnetic pulse. That'd be the only thing that could just make a vehicle flat out, just straight up turn off like that. Let's see.
Ambulance off, it was useless. But in addition to just what a problem this was, this also was like really confusing to Kimberly and the other first responders. Because when ambulances are built, they are built with the idea that there can never be a situation where the ambulance just totally turns off. Because again, it's like a worst case scenario. And so they give each ambulance 2 batteries, a primary and a backup, so that if for some reason the primary dies, you always have that backup and can always use the life-saving equipment. So the idea that both of these batteries failed simultaneously was like, how? How could that possibly happen? But before Kimberly or the other first responders could even begin to understand how that happened, something else began happening. They turned and saw there was this woman dressed in this old, long black dress running up the road, this desolate highway. This woman is charging up the road, screaming at them, and above her head, she's waving a Bible, and she's yelling at them to, hey, let me touch him. Let me touch him. I can save him. And the first responders are looking at each other like, what is going on here? Now, none of the first responders, nor Wanda, had any idea who this woman was as she continued running up the road, waving her Bible and yelling at them. But again, you need to picture this scene. The ambulance is off. They can't do anything to help Robert. They're basically waiting for the helicopter to show up, which they hope is on the way, but they can't communicate with the helicopter.
Didn't even think about the helicopter. If this shit happened to the van, or if this shit happened to the ambulance where it just cut the fuck off, I wonder what happened to the helicopter. But then again, maybe all this is just restricted to a certain radius. And I don't know.
And Robert basically is clinically dead at this point. He doesn't have a pulse, he's been struck by lightning, like there's nothing anybody can do except wait around and hope the helicopter shows up. And so when this woman came running up to the scene saying she could touch Robert and save him, none of the first responders were like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, let's bring her in, she can save the day. But they were sort of like, well, no one else is doing anything, and they looked over at Wanda, and she was just as shocked as they were at this woman's arrival and what she was saying. And so the first responders and Wanda just kind of stood there and allowed this woman—
all you're gonna do is touch him, right? Go for it.
In her black dress with her Bible to just wander up and crouch down next to Robert and begin this totally bizarre ritual. At first, the woman just began praying over Robert, and she's holding her Bible, and she's very focused and she's calm. And again, Kimberly, the first responders, and Wanda, they're all just standing there looking at each other and looking at this woman being like, what is going on here? But then eventually this woman in black, she begins getting really animated and begins slamming her Bible on the ground over and over again and begins screaming up at the heavens, demanding they save this man's life. Now, Kimberly and the others and Wanda, they're all watching this in total shock and just kind of let it keep on happening. Because again, it was sort of like, at this point, we're already committed, and what harm can this woman do? Right. I mean, Robert's clinically dead. And so Kimberly and the others just stood there silently watching as this woman in black continued to slam her Bible and demand that this man be saved. And then it was like something came over this woman. It was like she was completely possessed, and she grabbed her Bible and she lifted it over her head. She's kneeling right beside Robert.
And then boom, she gets struck by lightning. I'm sorry. Katai, what's up? I'm sorry. Let's keep going.
And when she opened her mouth,
if I was a storyteller, bro, I would have so many just like crazy, wacky, out of nowhere fucking plot twists that probably didn't make any fucking sense. It's just something to just jar you.
and looked up at the sky, it wasn't her voice that came out. It was like another voice, and she began speaking in tongues, things that didn't make any sense. She's saying all these crazy gibberish things to the sky, and as Kimberly and the others are getting frightened by what they're seeing and are about to step in, it was like the woman just stopped, and she stood up slowly, turned, and walked down the road back the direction she came. And within seconds of this woman beginning to walk off, the ambulance turned back on, lights, sirens, the engine all came back on, nothing wrong with it, and Robert began to breathe. Kimberly and the other first responders and Wanda just stared at Robert in total shock. He had not had a heartbeat for several minutes.
That's brain damage. If your brain doesn't get oxygen, I forget what the actual time limit is, but it's not that long, bro. You don't have that long. After a certain threshold, you will have brain damage because it's not getting any oxygen. That's it. That shit's just like deteriorating. Watch him not have brain damage. Some fucking wild shit.
Like he was dead. How he's alive when there was no medical intervention, really, because the ambulance was off. The only intervention was this woman and whatever she was doing. Like, nobody could comprehend that. But before anybody could make sense of that, the medical helicopter arrived, and seconds later it was chaos getting Robert onto the helicopter. And then before long, Robert, Wanda, and the helicopter took off. And then before long, Kimberly and the other first responders were just left there in the first moment of silence they had had for several minutes, just standing on the side of Interstate 74 thinking,
really?
What just happened? Now, none of the first responders wanted to admit to this, but they were all thinking the same thing. That woman in black
is a witch.
Had to have done something that, brought Robert back to life. I mean, there really was no other explanation. However, when the first responders just all kind of looked in the direction where this woman had turned.
And then again, for all accounts, she saved this man's life, so I don't think witches are in the business of saving lives. A spirit, an entity. Some would even go as far as to say an angel. But other people could say coincidence. Maybe it was just a meteorological effect that caused the ambulance to go kaput, right? So they're sitting there like, well, fuck, man, I don't know what we're gonna do. This crazy homeless lady walks up, does some weird shit, leaves, and then the ambulance just so happens to turn back on, and maybe this guy was going to wake up eventually, right? I mean, there's been plenty of people that got struck by lightning and lived. I don't know. It could be anything. Wherever your brain wants to go with this, that's what it is. Right?
And walked off just a couple of minutes earlier. She was gone. Now keep in mind where
Yeah, but notoriously, they're not known for that, David.
She had come from, where she had, run up the road from. It was just one big open road with really no obstructions. And then off to the side of the road was this huge open field. Basically, if someone had been walking for only a couple of minutes in that direction, from their vantage point,
still see them.
They would have seen them. There's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to go. but she was gone. However, Kimberly and the other first responders would quickly learn that this particular stretch of highway, in fact, more specifically, the field off the side of this highway, had great significance to this whole story. That big field that lined Interstate 74, where effectively the woman in black had disappeared to, used to be the home of a place called the Acton Campground, which was a Methodist community in the 1800s. The members of this community were known for their really loud prayer style and also for speaking in tongues. Now, unfortunately, this community actually burned to the ground in 1864. Afterwards, they rebuilt, but then in...
So basically, I know where you're going with this. Basically, had this man got struck by lightning in any other place that wasn't this stretch of road, he dies. Is what's being implied here. Right? Because this stretch of road is, well, for all accounts, haunted, right? Has an entity walking around, something paranormal, right? So he gets struck by lightning anywhere else, this man is dead. But he got struck by lightning here. Now, I wonder if he got struck by lightning because of the history of this place, and this lady was like, "Oh shit, there's another one. I gotta get him. It's kind of our fault, anyways." So I don't know.
In 1905,
Jeff, what's good?
Disaster struck again, and it burned to the ground again. And this time, they did not rebuild. Instead, the community was leveled to the ground, was sold off, and then eventually was just abandoned and became a big empty field. After the story of Robert's miraculous recovery began to spread, some people began to think that the woman in black might have been a ghost of one of these Acton residents from the 1800s who basically was drawn out to save Robert's life. Also, her intense prayers and speaking in tongues, along with the woman disappearing back into the field where the Acton campground had been, certainly seemed to cement the idea that this theory could actually be true. However, since that day in 1980, no one has seen the woman in black again.
Well, since 1980, has anyone been struck by lightning in or around that area? Or been in, like, extreme mortal danger? I don't know.
The show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Your most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. But oftentimes, building that relationship can be hard because we spend our code for 10% off your first month of therapy.
A son's nightmare. Walking in on your parents doing it?
One evening in February of 2011, a man in his 30s named Yang was eating dinner inside of his home in a rural village in China. Around him at the table were his 5 elderly aunts, who he lived with and took care of. Now, nobody spoke over dinner. It was totally silent. But this was common, and it was not awkward at all, because Yang actually preferred silence. He had been born with a disability that made it nearly impossible for him to speak. It also had left him blind in one eye, and over the course of Yang's life, he had been sort of bullied.
What a shitty role right there, man. Really is a shame he can't re-roll.
For his disability, and as
go back.
Disability that made it nearly impossible for him to speak. It also had left him blind in one eye, and over the course of Yang's life, he had been sort of bullied for his disability. And as a
That's fucked up.
result, he really didn't like being around other people, and he certainly didn't like trying to talk to other people. I mean, that was really, again, something he had a really hard time doing. But in his life, the few people that totally accepted him and loved him were his family, in particular his 5 aunts. They didn't care at all that basically he never spoke. And so, for example, at this dinner table, there was no expectation that anybody would speak. And Yang loved it. But more than just feeling happy that he could be himself around his aunts, Yang also took a lot of pride in looking after his aunts. You know, he wanted to make sure they were comfortable and well looked after in their old age. So after this silent dinner, Yang stood up and he cleaned the table off, and then he helped one of his aunts go up to her bedroom. And after getting her tucked in, and as Yang was about to go down and help the next aunt go to her bedroom, he heard sirens outside. Now, Yang lives in this very remote rural village in China that's actually so remote they didn't have their own police force. But even more specifically, Yang literally in his whole life had never even heard a siren or seen a police car. And so this is like really unique.
Brand new.
And so instead of going and helping his next aunt, Yang went outside to see what was going on. And as soon as he got out there, he looked down the hill. He was up on top of this hill. That's where his house was. He saw at the base of the hill, about 600 feet away, were 2 police cars with their lights flashing. I mean, clearly something major was happening in his town. And so again, feeling very curious because he's never seen anything like this, Yang decides to continue to investigate. And so he leaves his home and begins walking down the road towards the cars. But he stops at a safe distance away because 1, he doesn't want to interfere, and 2, he really doesn't want to talk to the police because he can't really talk. And he's actually worried that he's going to get bullied if he talks to the police. And so from a safe distance, he just stood there and watched whatever was going on. And
he's pretty much doing what most of us do still today. Whenever something happens with police, we're just like, wonder what's going on. He's no different than anybody else, really.
What was going on is the 2 police officers who had responded and shown up in Yang's village were standing there at the foot of this hill trying to make sense of this insane story a local farmer had just told them. The man was sitting there, his face was in his hands, he was crying hysterically, and he was trying to give them more information, but it was like he was too upset. And finally, one of the officers tells the guy, like, hey, stop what you're doing, start all over again, calm down, and just tell us the story from the beginning. And at this, the farmer did calm down, and after taking a deep breath, he told the officer the story. He said about a week earlier, he had this horrible nightmare. He said he dreamed of his mother and she was shrouded in darkness and she was terrified and she was screaming for his help. And the farmer said, in the dream, he ran to his mother to try to save her. But as soon as he would get close to her, it was like this shadow went over his mother and then she disappeared. And then the farmer would wake up and he'd be so terrified and so upset. Now, at first, the farmer told the officer that, he didn't think much of this nightmare. He was not a superstitious person. He just thought, it's a nightmare. But over the next several days, he kept having the same nightmare about his mother that, she was scared and then she would disappear as soon as he went to help her. And so after a week of these horrible dreams, the farmer said he finally decided, I'm just gonna go check on my mother in person and make sure she's okay. But when he went to his mother's place, his mother was missing and he couldn't find her anywhere. And he had this horrible thought that she'd been abducted. And so he had called the police. Now, the police did understand that it was totally bizarre that they were here ultimately because of some guy's nightmare. Yeah. But when they went to his mother's place, she really was missing. And so they ultimately told the farmer to just go home and that they would put together a search party and they would look for his mother.
How old is she? She had to have been taken. But then again, she could be so old that maybe she's losing it and just wandered. That happens with the elderly. But if she's not losing and she didn't just wander, and that's out of character for her to just disappear, like if she got taken by somebody or something, we'll see.
And so after the farmer said okay and then headed back towards his place, the 2 officers got back in their cruisers and they drove out of the village past Yang, who was still standing there watching everything happening, back to the police station. And there, the officers immediately coordinated 2 investigative teams that would go out and look for the farmer's mother. Now, one of these teams was sent to a local city to basically canvass the area to see if she was there, but that search proved to be fruitless. And then the other investigative team, they were sent back to the village. And when they were there, they went door to door asking all the residents if they had any idea what happened to this farmer's mother. And it was during this search in the village that they got a tip. And that tip would lead them to a very specific location, Yang's home. And when police went to Yang's home, they found the front door was wide open. But when they walked right up and yelled inside of the home, calling out for Yang, nobody yelled back. In fact, the home was totally dark and silent. And so after a few more minutes of police calling out for anyone inside the home to come out and talk to them and not getting an answer, the police decided to walk inside. And so into this dark, cramped home they went. And as they walked, they noticed there were all these dirty towels and dirty dishes and sort of trash everywhere.
Yang is the son of the missing mother, right? Or is Yang the kid that we were talking about earlier?
I mean, the place was kind of a pigsty.
I got lost for a second.
And again, it's eerily silent. Every step they took, they were walking on these boards that creaked with every step. And as they're moving, they're calling out, "Yo, Yang, if you're in here, come out." But again, it's totally silent. And they eventually make their way to the very back of the home. Now, the police really did not know what to expect when they showed up at Yang's place, But they did hope that by going there, they would somehow, some way find a reasonable explanation for all of this.
Yeah.
You know, the
Something.
dream that kicked off this investigation and this totally bizarre tip they got. I mean, they really just wanted to put this thing to bed, and they were hoping that by going to Yang's place, they would get that. However, when the police walked into the very last room they had not searched yet, the very back of his home, they knew there was no reasonable explanation here. That back room is where Yang's aunts all slept. And when
Yang is the kid. Okay.
the police walked into that room, sure enough, the aunts were in their beds where Yang had left them. However, the police realized, like, wait a minute, we have been yelling and screaming and trying to get people to come out of the home, yet all these women are still asleep. How could they possibly sleep through all that commotion? But as the police walked up to each of these 5 women, they realized the outlandish tip that had sent them here in the first place had to be correct. It would turn out Yang did not harm that farmer's mother. In fact, he did the opposite. She was one of his 5 elderly aunts, and he went to great lengths to care for each of these women. I mean, he basically would have done anything for them. However, there was a problem. His 5 aunts were dead, and had been for a long time. While Yang considered these women to be his family, literally, I mean, he called them his aunts, in reality, he was not related to them at all. Instead, these were just women from the local village where he lived who had been nice to him. They had all died of natural causes. But Yang didn't understand it when they passed away. Instead, all Yang knew is that he was sort of an outcast and that nobody respected him and he was treated really badly by most people.
This dude was hoarding dead bodies as friends. He didn't understand the concept of death at all. So he just thought they were always taking really long. This poor fucking child. Good God. That's... Where are the parents? You know, he lived with his 5... Oh, maybe he didn't have... The ants aren't even real, bro. I keep thinking like they're actually related. No, these are just random women, and they just died. He's not killing anyone. It's just instead of giving them a proper burial, he's hanging on to them like dolls, like friends, like a kid with a teddy bear or with his He-Man, or a girl with her Barbie, just like, you know, her own little thing. These are his companions. And it's so fucking morbid.
Except for these women. They'd been the only people that really cared about him. And so after they died, he felt really sad and lonely. And
these women were nice to him, and when they finally died, he took their bodies, took care of them, respected them, were nice to them simply because they were nice to him. I mean, I understand the sentiment, but it doesn't take away from just the morbid nature of it, really.
so, one by one, he dug these women up and brought them home with him.
Never mind!
And began caring for them as if they were still alive. When that farmer had gone to...
Yeah, you went too far. How old was this kid? They make it seem like he was but a child. Dog, okay. At first, I was gonna give this kid the benefit of the doubt. This is going too far. This is going too far. I simply thought that, like, oh no, man, they died in their bed and you went and grabbed them out of their bed. Or maybe they died at your place. I don't fucking know. They were nice to you. I don't know why this didn't cross my mind. Like, how did you get these bodies? But Jesus Christ, he himself dug them.
To go check on his mother.
18. I don't know why I thought he was younger. Like, way younger. That's what it made. At first, that's the vibe I was getting. Like, 10, 11, 12, something like that. Because if he's 18 or 20, he's mentally ill. Because if you don't understand the concept of death by the time you're 18 or 20, then, bruh, I can understand. Because he said, you know, didn't understand what had happened, didn't understand the concept of death. I remember being 8 years old. I didn't know what death meant. I remember being 7, 9, right? Didn't know what death was. No one had explained it to me, and I hadn't experienced it yet till my grandparents went, right? So, dog. I feel like you should know the concept of death by the time you're 18. 20. Something you should. There's no excuse to be desecrating. But I mean, technically, he was taking good care of these women. Really? Yeah, dude. For some reason, I was imagining the age of like young man. Like, and I understand 18, 20 to us, you're still a kid, but you understand what I'm talking about? Like, a 10-year-old doesn't understand death. An 18-year-old does. That's why I consider that. That's what I thought because he said, I was just going off of what he said. But dear Lord, I was about to give some benefit of the doubt here, but no, not no more, man. You got a sickness. You're not okay. I understand that you're mute and stuff like that. That's one thing, but
after having the recurring nightmare about, her going missing, he had gone to her gravesite and found her coffin was literally empty, hence believing somebody had abducted her body. And then the strange tip police got that led them literally to Yang's house was a local had seen Yang carrying a body up the hill to his home. And his home actually was not a typical home. Instead, Yang's home was actually just a cave that he had outfitted with some boards on the ground for a floor and a couple of makeshift beds. Yang was arrested for what he did, but ultimately he was sent to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. All of the bodies that Yang stole were reburied.
I don't think that guy is I don't know, man. He's one psychotic break away from actually being a danger to society, but just off of that alone, yeah, psychiatric facility. Holy ass.
And the farmer's recurring nightmares about his mother stopped as soon as her body was returned to her grave.
To think that all this was discovered because of a man's dream. Which, hey, you can't really scoff at. One time when I still remember this dream vividly. I was young. And my sister was very, very young. My sister that's in the Air Force, she was like baby. Like still drinking out of a bottle, right? No, she wasn't a baby. She was like, I don't know, 3, 4. But I was like 10, 12. I had a dream that she was killed. As like a 10 or 11-year-old, bro, 12-year-old. I had a dream that she had her head chopped off by a machete. I don't know why. I just don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why I had that dream at such an early of an age and how vivid and violent it was. But I had a dream that she was decapitated. And as soon as I had that dream, I woke up and immediately went into her room to make sure that she was there. She was. I breathed a sigh of relief. I kissed her on the forehead and I went back to bed. And I never had that dream ever again. But it scared me so much so that I got out of bed and went and checked on my little sister. So I know, man. This guy had a reoccurring dream that just seemed like something was strange about it. And when something is strange, you actually physically do something, right? But yeah. Why didn't that person say anything that they saw him dragging a body? Because you have to remember where they lived. They lived in a very remote part of China where they didn't even have access to police. They weren't even used to seeing police. They didn't even have their own police department. So if anyone saw anything, I mean, I don't know. I assume that most of this stuff happened at night, right? And remote area, dark as fuck, not a lot of street lights. No one's really out past, I don't know, 9, 10 p.m. anyways, maybe. I don't know what kind of town it is, but it probably wasn't hard to get away with dragging something out of the cemetery. Depending on where the cemetery is located, you could probably get away with dragging something out of a cemetery here in America. It just depends on what's around the cemetery, because if it's a cemetery in a rural area, get away with it pretty easy. But if it's a cemetery and then, like, I don't know, right around the corner there's a fucking 7-Eleven, chances are you might not get away with it because you're going to get caught on some kind of camera. So, but I forget when this happened. Very rural part of China, not a big population, kind of kind of a shitty area, remote, not a lot of things nearby. It's probably pretty easy to get away with digging up a corpse. And getting away with it. He got away with it with 5 fucking people. Five bodies. So that is homie was just not okay in the head. That's a psychological problem, dude. But hey, at least he wasn't engaging in necrophilia. Gotta look at the story as a half full, I suppose. You know, he's just got that dude's got a mental problem. Really. And kind of got to feel bad for him, really, because he thought he had friends, but it was just dead people. And to us, that seems weird, wild, crazy, strange, fucking awkward. But to him, he thought he had friends. That's the greatest tragedy right there. This man thought that he had a family, and in all reality, he had fucking nobody. And on top of that, he's got a psychological problem that had him storing corpse in the place that he lives and sleeps. You know how unsanitary and bad for your health it is to be around a dead body for extended amounts of time? Nah, man. That's and these women were nice to him, man. If only more people were nice to him and could realize that this dude had, well, the police finally found out, but he didn't kill anybody. So I can only feel bad for Yang. Really. As disturbing as the story was. All right. He was probably autistic. It didn't help that he got bullied, right? So it's hard to be friends with people that can speak back. What do? You befriend the people that can't make fun of you. Because they're dead. Maybe he was just better at getting along with dead people than he was at getting along with people who are alive, which if you look at if you look at it like that, with that logic, I kind of agree with the little man. Sometimes people exhaust me, man. I don't want to fucking talk to anybody. I don't want to hear from anybody. I want to interact with any of these fuckers. Not saying that I would rather conversate with a dead person, but you know that's what dogs are for and cats, right? Fucking befriend and talk to an animal before most people these days, right? So in that regard, I understand, but you know he didn't understand it, and that's sad to us. Probably not sad to him. He probably still doesn't even know the difference. He probably still thinks that he probably still doesn't even know why he's in jail or why he's in a psychiatric facility. And he can't explain himself. So it's just like, fuck, dude. That's rough. That's rough. I am going to put this in my watch later because I do want to watch that one. I do love me a good old story of revenge. All right. Let's see what we can put in the watch later. Let's see. I kind of want to watch this one at some point. Not today though. But it's a watch later. They made a Harry Potter TV series? For what? For what? I like the whole Harry Potter universe, but We really need more Harry Potter? The video games are doing pretty good. Could have just left it up to the video games to bring all the Harry Potter content. You really need a fucking TV series after all these damn movies? You see what I'm saying, man? It's like... Meanwhile, they're taking fucking ages to release season 2 of Fallout. But I'm glad we have that. Right? Am I right? Are y'all excited for Harry Potter TV series? Super duper excited. See. I don't see anything else. Oh, dude, damn. It flopped harder than I thought. Captain America loses 100 million. Damn. See? Me personally, I think the shield should have gone to Bucky. But diversification, bruh. Let's get it. Hell yeah. That shit just gets the blood flowing, doesn't it? Diversification. What's the other one? Inclusivity. Hell yeah. Take your inclusivity and take it straight to the bank with that $100 million L you just took. Yay. Hooray for inclusivity. Boo, we lost money. Why did we lose money? Well, because you fucked it. Fucked it. After Civil War, I really thought that... Or no. After Winter Soldier, I really thought in my head, I was like, bet he's going to be the next Cap. After Cap's done. But no. For fucking shame. Captain America still did better than Snow White. Did Snow White ever come out? It was bad, wasn't it? Was it bad? See. Oh my god. No, I don't think there's anything else that I want to add here to the watch later. Crazy Karen TikTok fails. I wonder where Nico gets all these videos. Do people just send it to him? Or does he find them? Probably kind of how like I find mine. Yo, I really got to get into watching Invincible again, but I have to finish watching the show that I'm watching right now. Today, right? What do you mean, Michelle? What are we talking about? I need to start watching Daredevil again. I don't know what to watch or what to skip, because didn't Daredevil, like, didn't it? I don't think they fucked up Daredevil. They made Daredevil look stupid on She-Hulk. I think that's what it was. And I'll skip all of that if I get back into Daredevil. There's just so much to watch, man. And like I've kind of like just been playing the shit out of Monster Hunter lately. So Snow White came out today. I have no idea. I have no idea. Okay. All right. Well, guys, gals, we will be live again tomorrow, same time, maybe earlier. I don't know if it'll be a music stream or a variety stream, but it'll be a stream nonetheless. I might do some Monster Hunter later on Twitch if y'all wanna come by and chill. Or I might do some Monster Hunter here on YouTube. It just depends if y'all care to watch or not. I don't know which one I want to do it on. I don't know which platform of my subscribers cares more, Twitch or YouTube, about gaming streams. So we shall see. But I'm out. My niece is about to be here. I'm fucking starving. Have to use the bathroom. Have to let dog in. And but yeah, put your request in for tomorrow, whether it's a variety or music. We'll see what it is. And yeah, if you need anything, y'all can hit me up at or DM me in Discord. And I will see y'all tomorrow, dudes. All right. Bye, guys.